Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Thursday, July the 18th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's produced the program. Let's get it going. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So today's the last day for me before I go on holiday, so if you'd like to have a chat, bring up an issue of concern to you, take a swing at me, or whatever the case may be, today is the day. And as you heard Brian Medore mention in the VOCM newscast, the British Open is absolutely on at Royal Troon in Scotland. It's not the visual delight, say for instance, that the Masters or many American golf courses would be. It's kind of brown and the pot bunkers dominated, the wind and the rain maybe dominate as well. But just a couple of quick notes, if you'll indulge me, about Troon. So some pretty cool champions and one-time major winners have happened at Troon. So back in 2016, Swede Henrik Stenson broke through for his only major. Todd Hamilton from the States in 2004, his only major. Justin Leonard in 1997, his only major. 89, Calcavecchia from the States, his only major. And five-time British Open winner Tom Watson won in 82. 73, Tom Weiskopf, the elegant American, with his only major. And back in 1962, Arnold Palmer, of course, with a trophy case full of majors. Stick with 1997 for just one moment. So this has a special place in my heart. So going into Sunday, Jesper Parnevik of Sweden, he was 2 strokes clear of Darren Clarke from Ireland and 5 clear of Justin Leonard. Leonard went on to win. Neither of the Europeans could break par. Leonard shot at 65 to win the contest. On July the 18th in 1997, Darren Clarke, one of my favorite players of all time, he was the overnight leader at the Open. I went to a Husky gas station to have a Century Sam cigar and a bottle of beer with a guy who was a truck driver who I'd never met in my life. The reason why I was there so late at night, I left the hospital after Nicholas Daly was born at 12:46 on the 18th of July, went to the Husky by myself, didn't know where to go. I was new in town in Hinton, Alberta, and so happy birthday to Nicholas. So 1997 and Leonard's victory and Clark's overnight lead after 2 rounds at the Open, of course, really special. I will never forget that. And the happiest of birthdays to a tremendous young man. Happy birthday, Nicky. We'll see you later, kid. All right, a couple of quickies before we get to you. It was on this date, 1970, that San Francisco Giants outfielder Willie Mays became the 10th baseball player to get 3,000 hits. You know, 3 is a magical number in baseball. If you hit 300 for a career, likely in the Hall of Fame. 3,000 hits, of course, is a big deal as well. And 300 wins for a pitcher. 3,000 hits and 300 wins, maybe never going to happen again. The active leader in majors right now is Freddie Freeman, Dodger All-Star, of course, but he's 34 years of age. He's only got 2,217 hits. Number 2 on the list is Jose Altuve. He's got 2,165. And Canadian Joey Votto, 3rd on the active list for hits. He's got 2,135. Has Votto done enough to be in the Hall of Fame? In addition to 2,100 plus hits, I don't know, Dave's shaking his head. He's got 356 home runs as a catcher, a illustrious career. So there you go. All right, and of course the all-time leader in hits is Rose with 4,256 and a 303 lifetime average. Guess how many players in Major League Baseball, Dave, have ever had 3,000 hits? 33. 3 is a magic number in baseball. And very last sports note before I stop wasting your time, we'll get to some of the news. Whether you're a current gymnast fan and you're looking at like American Simone Biles, or maybe Mary Lou Retton is more your vintage, it was on this date in 1976 that Romanian gymnast Nadia Comaneci took the world by storm. Of course, at the Montreal Olympics. 14 years old, from Romania, the first ever gymnast to score a perfect 10 at the Olympics, and that first performance was on the uneven parallel bars. She was, of course, the darling of the Montreal Olympics. Had 7 perfect scores, 3 gold medals, a silver and a bronze. Went on, of course, to compete in the 80 Games as well with 4 gold and a silver medal. Nadia Comaneci became a household name in 1976. Okay, let's wrap up the Premier's meetings that just concluded in Halifax. Of course, we know the issues that have been broached, and some of the comments from the premiers right across the board telling the Prime Minister to stay in your own lane. A couple of interesting comments, though, have come from some of the premiers. Look, it's probably very wise for us to realise where provincial jurisdiction ends and where federal jurisdiction begins, and there has been some overreach. No question about it. But on some of these issues, there's a bit of a self-own by some of the premiers who have come up short with their responsibility inside their own province, and the federal government has tried to backstop some issues. And one such comment was from Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford. This is a strange one. You know, we can talk about dental care and pharmacare, and these are two really good examples where maybe we've created another layer of bureaucracy, unnecessarily so. But this one from Ford was about the $1 billion national school lunch program. It's going to feed an additional 400,000 children per year. So Ford takes aim at that. Well, if that's the case, Mr. Ford, Premier Ford, maybe you could do a better job in your own province of feeding children. You know, it's really still a shocking statistic to know that there's so many children who are reliant on food banks. It makes them so 20% of food bank users across the country. We know so many children, their opportunity for a healthy, nutritious meal or meals throughout the course of the day is what Kids Eat Smart or the school lunch program. So it's a kind of a strange one to take a swing at the government about, but if you want to take it on, we can do it. Also on that front, apparently some legitimate concerns voiced by various premiers, knowing full well that our largest trading partner by a long shot is the United States, and their focus would be on defense spending, and our commitment to NATO as one of the 32 nations, of which 23 are going to hit the 2% of GDP target this year. We won't. But out of nowhere, I guess based on pressure, primarily from the Americans, Minister Blair and the Prime Minister have now said that we are going to hit a 2% target. How, when, and why, we don't know. But they have now said that they're going to do it. So school launch, all right. NATO spending or defense spending, okay. And then, of course, equalization. Pretty much consensus across the board if you back out Premier Legault, because, of course, Quebec make out like bandits when it comes to equalization. But David Eby, apparently the Premier of British Columbia, has formally joined the court challenge with an intervener status. They're looking at their own particular challenge of the equalization formula. Their Attorney General is perusing the concept at this moment in time. So David Eby on side, as well as Scott Moe in Saskatchewan, as well as Danielle Smith in Alberta. So it looks like there's a bit of pressure going to be brought to bear. Whether or not that means anything, because the Liberals continued to rubber stamp the equalization formula last year, and that goes all the way to 2029, so that's on board. Also, Premier Legault broaching the concept of asylum seekers and immigrants with Premier Fury. And the Premier said, not to put words in his mouth, but to paraphrase, that if possible, and if we have the fiscal capacity, maybe we'd be able to take some asylum seekers from the province of Quebec, because of course many come across Roxham Road, which is now closed. But the reality is, do we actually have the fiscal capacity to bring in more asylum seekers? I mean, again, it doesn't make you a bad person to look at the big broad strokes of what's happening in the country regarding housing, healthcare, the absence of family doctors. For the numbers that Stephen Major at the NLMA is using is 175,000 people in this province. So while I do, and you hear me, talk about the economic upside, which is real when we talk about immigration, I mean, if we lean on just the population, the birth rates in this province, our population will drop by 2,700 people last year. 2,700 people more died than children were born. So the Premier says if we have the capacity, we will, but I'm not so sure we do. Also on that front, when it comes to Premier Legault, is no real update on what might be going on between this province and Quebec regarding 2041, the Upper Churchill, Muskrat, Gull, and otherwise. But now going back to court. The Innu Nation is going back into the courts, suing both the federal and Newfoundland and Labrador government over the Muskrat Falls mitigation deal. The problem for the Innu Nation is pretty clear. Because of this most recent $5.2 billion mitigation deal, of course, $1 billion loan and an additional $1 billion on the federal loan guarantee, $3.2 billion associated with Hibernia revenues. But they say, the Innu Nation, is that when they gave their right and the green light for the use of their land for the Muskrat project to go ahead, this mitigation deal compromises their revenue side $1 billion. So they already went back to court in 2021, and then about a month later they withdrew just so there could be opportunity for more conversation. Nothing has happened. So back to court we go. Also of note when it comes to the Innu Nation and hydroelectric development, they say clearly there will be no further conversation about a potential to develop at Gull Island until this Muskrat Falls mitigation deal is broached and they are made whole in the terms of the $1 billion lost because of the mitigation deal. So you know full well, between this province and Quebec, not only is it the Upper Churchill that's being discussed, absolutely there's got to be some kind of conversation about Muskrat, and absolutely discussion regarding Gull Island and the 2,225 megawatts available at that site. But back to court they go on that particular issue, which I think is a bigger deal than maybe some people give it credit for. All right, a couple of quickies. So if you've flown in the recent past, and you know since 2014 where us poor peasants were able to bring a checked bag and not have to pay for it, and everything changed. Well, WestJet and Air Canada brought forward a $25 checked bag fee. And of course, since then, it's climbed by more than 40%. So it's kind of expensive to check a bag. So what do people do? They bring on the biggest purse they can find and the biggest carry-on that could possibly be squashed in the overhead bin, and it becomes confusing. And for many flights that are full, there's nowhere to put some of these carry-on bags. Then they end up asking you to check your carry-on bag free of charge. You know full well, at some point in the very near future, because they can, they're going to charge us for our carry-on bags. But since 2014, when it used to be free, and $25 was the first fee, now it's increased by 40%. Air Canada, after February, if you booked after February 27th, charged between $35 and $42 for the first checked bag. WestJet also now charges between $35 and $42 for the first checked bag for economy fares booked after the 14th of February. So look out for carry-on fees to be right around the corner, because they're still trying to recover from the lack of travel, of course, during the you-know-what. Okay, sticking with air travel. So there hasn't been much, if anything, that's happened out at the Stephenville Airport. It's been around 3 years since Carl Diamond and the Diamond Group discussed and proposed their plans. Whether it be $500 million in spending, these massive yet-to-exist cargo drones, the return of passenger travel, which Mr. Diamond now says will be happening by the end of the year. Okay. I'm not going to try to be mean-spirited or over the top here, but he now admits that he has met some financial struggles. He's having a hard time finding investors for a privately owned airport, of which there's only one in the country, and of course they're not familiar with the space, but apparently he says an unnamed investor from the UK is coming on board. Again, in the interest of fairness, I'll believe it when I see it. Because up until now, nothing. The work that's been done on the runways was federal government money, but there's now, when we talk about the fact that he bought the airport for $6.90 after clearing $1 million in liabilities, he's starting not at zero, he's starting at negative $2.4 million. Why? Because the company that installed the runway lights have not been paid. So while he tries to get off the ground with some of his lofty aspirational plans, and of course I think we'll all believe it when we see it, he's starting from $2.4 million in the hole. So that's a long way from negative 2.4 to 500 million. Will there be any restoration of passenger travel? Remains to be seen. Will there ever be the thousands of jobs promised or pledged by Mr. Diamond some 3 years ago? I mean, I know it took a while for the actual formal purchase to go through, but this has been, you know, people like to use the word boondoggle, and it sort of is. You know, when the town of Stephenville was looking for someone to come in and take over in some respect, didn't go to tender. Of course, one person came forward, so a sole bidder takes on the airport, yes, shed the liabilities of $1 million, but you wonder whether or not there was a better play available to the town of Stephenville. And by the look of it, some 3 years later, absolutely there was a better play available. Now, they wanted to do away with town money being transferred to the Stephenville Airport Authority, and I think that has now stopped. The provincial line of credit has been done away with, so Mr. Diamond's left to his own devices. And remember, it wasn't me, it was Mr. Diamond that said that finances would not be a problem. But he's run out of money. And even the bit of money he was able to scratch up at this moment in time didn't come from a traditional lending source. It came from a loan from a guy who had won the lotto. So there's an update on the Stephenville Airport, which doesn't bring much of an update to bear. But anyway, that was in the news, so I thought I'd bring it up. Okay. Sometime last summer, there was an all-party committee struck regarding mental health and addictions. There's a questionnaire that's online. It's available until the 2nd of August for people to chime in, whether it be just general members of the public, families and individuals living with a mental health or addiction challenge. We talk about the shortage of family doctors, and we talk about wait times for MRIs and wait times for surgeries, and they're all, of course, critically important. But I think, from where I sit, the mental health and addictions challenges and issues, they kind of fall off the front burner. Mental health maybe not so much, because we have to understand the difference between mental health, mental illness, and mental wellness, but it's access to long-term care, the continuity of care, the amount of money being spent, the disparity between rural and urban access to mental health services. And in the world of addictions, a lot of people, I don't know what percentage of the population, but there's enough people that just don't care, because they think people have made their own bed, they have to sleep in it regardless. Let's step back one more time here. We're told by sheriffs and other members of the justice system that work in the courthouses that they say that the turnstiles are populated with somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 85% of people going through the courts have a mental health issue and or they have an addictions issue. So if we know regarding public safety, and there's lots of stories in the news today about public safety and the people's worries out there, whether it be in Bowering Park and the arrest made regarding a sexual assault of someone familiar to the evil person who committed this atrocity against youth, including a charge of incest, which basically means that you're too closely related to be allowed to get married, and you could be a direct family member or maybe someone closely linked to the family. But those stories are madness. So inside the world of the all-party committee, take the time and the opportunity to go to the questionnaire, have your say, and hopefully, just hopefully, when all the stories are told and the data is compiled, that will meet the pledge of some 9% of the healthcare budget to be spent on mental health. And we hope that it's just not new surroundings in the new mental health and addictions facility to be built on the health sciences complex. Hopefully there's a change in the way that we deliver mental health services, a change in the way we deliver addiction services. And we up our game to know that people, when they find themselves in a position where they know and acknowledge that they need some help and they need some support, it can't be a wait list, whether it be talking about detox to rehab or simply the first time that you say to yourself, I need someone to talk to, I'm struggling mentally, because people suffer in silence. And when we talk about the struggles that people have with access, maybe, just maybe, that unfortunately has the unintended consequence of someone saying, well, if there's no support out there, I'm not even going to try. Don't do that. Don't say that to yourself. It's going to take some time, possibly, but the first step is to acknowledge that you may indeed need some help. So whether that first step be with a friend or a family member and then on to a healthcare professional. So please fill out the questionnaire and take it on if you can. All right. How are we doing on the phone there, Dave? Today's my last day. Make it easy on me, folks. Do me a solid. Okay. Yesterday, we had a breakdown, came from the Financial Post, and the author of the piece was Jack Mintz. He writes some interesting stuff. It was a breakdown of the public sector bloat, as he called it, from 2014 to 2023. And we won't get into all the various departments and the numbers that have been increased, but from 2014 through last year, the non-military federal service grew from 257,138 to 357,247, a 38.9% increase in the public sector, more than 3 times the rate of growth of the population. Have services improved to that tune? Of course they haven't. It got me thinking, what exactly went on before 2013? Or 2014. So I went and had a look. You know, we'll talk about one party or another and the small government and spending and all the rest. I remember pretty famously in 2012, the budget delivered by the Harper Conservatives were talking about shedding tens of thousands of jobs. Can you remember that one? I think they said there was going to be an immediate loss of some 19,900 jobs, if I remember the number correctly. So I was just curious. You know, what kind of attention was given to either loss of jobs or an increase in the public sector from 2005 to 2014? And lo and behold, and this is from the Parliamentary Budget Office, this is not just trying to break down old stats. I think the PBO does extraordinary work. So apparently, the the numbers of jobs inside the public sector grew, and grew dramatically under Prime Minister Harper. There were some late in the game jobs lost just before the 2015 election, but here's the PBO spreadsheets say the number of individuals on the federal payroll rose 14% by the end of the fiscal year of 2005-2006 up into 2012. So we kind of get bamboozled sometimes into thinking that there's huge, big differences in the spending and population growth and the numbers of people working in the public sector, but that does not dismiss the fact of the matter is a 38.9% growth in the number of people working in the federal public sector from 2015 to last year, almost 39% growth. If services kept up, I think people would be willing to play along, but services have not grown or improved exponentially, in my personal opinion, from the stories I hear and my interactions. What do you think? We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Openline. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That means you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Well, I was talking about air travel and check bag fees and all the rest. I said, here comes the fees for carry-ons. Apparently, Porter already does it. $52.50 for a carry-on bag, limit one per passenger, duffel bag, backpack, suitcase, or pet carrier. So I haven't flown Porter in years, so I had no earthly idea. But apparently, that's already a thing. All right, let's begin this morning on line number 2. Good morning, Mary. You're on the air.
Oh, good morning, Paddy. Paddy, I want to voice my opinion, and it's really disgusting about tellers. There's talk of them being removed from the bank. I mean, the bank is bad enough now when you go into it. You got seniors got to get in a line up, and there's people there with walkers and canes and everything. And I mean, I don't know what they're trying to prove. I really don't. I mean, the banks are terrible. They got no regard anymore for anybody. I know I go there quite often. I mean, I'm a senior, and it's really disgusting. And they're going to wait to do away with the tellers. Sure, some seniors don't know nothing about computers or online or anything. And I happen to be one of them. I mean, what do you do?
Well,
I mean, what are they trying to do to the seniors? Put them all on a pan of ice and put them out to sea and let them drift?
It's certainly not. It's certainly not ideal for people who are relying on bank tellers. Some people simply like the face-to-face opportunity to do their banking, pay a bill or withdraw cash, or get some American currency, whatever the case may be. But it absolutely is happening. There are fewer tellers at my bank than there were 5 years ago. That much I can say for sure. Then people even worry about reduced hours for the tellers. Someone called the show a couple of weeks ago and said that apparently the tellers aren't in operation at the bank until 10 o'clock, wherever that person banks. And at 9:55 said to the teller, "Can I just please do my business?" And the teller said, "No, I can't do it until 10. So the restrictions at the bank, while they're making more money than ever before, historic profits at the big 5 banks here in the country, and withdrawing or removing more tellers, it's not great, to say the very least. And just look at the bank fees we pay, for God's sake.
It's not, Paddy. It's really scary the way things are today. I mean, with this technology, people must remember that, I mean, we didn't grow up with this. I know I didn't. And I mean, you should be able to go to the bank and do your business and go to a teller, and that's it. But what gets me, Paddy, one time there was you could go into a bank and there was a place for a senior to sit down, and you'd be called over.
Yeah.
But now you're just, I mean, I've given people my turn. They've had walkers, they've had canes, and I mean, if every time I go in and I see a person like that, I'll always let them go ahead of me. But like now, there's no respect, there's nothing anymore.
You don't use a computer, do you, Mary?
No, I don't know nothing about a computer. I never wanted to learn.
Fair enough. Sometimes I think that some people, and in this case maybe some seniors, are intimidated by the computer, when in fact, I'll tell you what, right now, like, I'm not computer savvy at all. I know how to use the very basics and to navigate the internet and those types of things, in my email and all those things, but it's really not that complicated. And things like online banking and what have you, I think you'd be really surprised if, say, someone belonged to you, a grandchild or a friend, or at the public library, if you had one look at it and someone showed you how to do some of the fundamentals, like have an email or use Facebook to stay in contact with your family, or to do online banking, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised just how easy it is.
I know, Paddy, but what I'm saying, if you wanted to do a bit of business or anything and you just couldn't, navigate it, I think there should be somebody in the bank, there to help people no matter what.
I don't
That's
disagree.
my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100% on that particular front. And far be it for me to tell you what to do. You'll do whatever you see fit. But I do think that some of the uses of computers, like if someone got you an iPad or whatever the case may be, I think before long you'd feel like a computer whiz, because it's easier than people realize. Now, some of the real fundamental, or some of the more issues like spreadsheets and some other computer programming, I don't know if it's fit to eat, but little things like, checking my bank account and transferring money around and stuff like that, I was a bit intimidated too, to be honest with you. I talk about tech all the time, but I only talk about it as an observer. I'm not that tech savvy, period. But as someone in your family, I bet you if you spent a half hour looking at just a couple of very simple things, you'd be thinking to yourself, why haven't I been doing this forever?
I don't know, Paddy. I think I'd need more than a half hour. I don't know. I don't know about a half hour.
Maybe a little bit more than a half hour.
But anyway, Paddy, there's some other little thing that I just wanted to mention while I'm on the phone. Yeah. Last Wednesday, I went up on the top of Thorburn Road to get gas.
Yeah.
And the man ahead of me, he was only a young fella, and we just had a little chat as we were pumping the gas. And then he went in ahead of me into the service station, and he held the door open for me. Now, mind you, he was only a young fella, I don't know if he was 30. But anyway, I fooled around in there because I wanted the service station, I wanted to get some water and that. So when I went to the checkout, the girl said to me, she said, your gas is paid for.
Oh, my.
And I said, oh, no, I said, I didn't pay for it. No, she said, that man out in the car paid for it. So I tried to catch him, but he was gone before I got out. But, Paddy, I hope he's listening, because I thought it was so nice of him to do that. I don't know, Paddy, if I looked poor or what, but anyway, he paid for the gas. And it was such a nice thing to do. I don't know if it was because I was a senior or what, but I think it was. I can't get it out of my mind that I couldn't thank him. So I hope he's listening.
Well, just maybe a kind gesture. Just did it out of the goodness of his heart. And bravo to whoever that fellow is. Good on you. And that's a great story, Mary. I appreciate you telling it.
Yes, I like to thank people and I appreciate things, but I just couldn't catch him. And I'm not so sure if I'd know him again, if I did see him up there. Well, Paddy, thank you for listening to me, and I really appreciate you, listening to me, because, I get upset over things.
Whenever you feel that you're upset about anything, Mary, give me another call.
All right. Thank you, Paddy.
You're welcome.
And tell David thank you for calling me back.
I will so.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Mary.
Bye-bye.
All right, there you go. I mean, the bank tellers, it's much akin to, even going to the drugstore or the grocery store, and you look down the long line of all the cash registers, and let's just say, for round number, there's 8 lines, and then there's only 3 registers open, but yet there's a full bank of self-checkouts. And there's absolutely no question. I can only speak from my branch. The bank I go to, if you do the number of tellers that were in place 5 years ago versus today after they did the remodel, far fewer. And the lines for people who want to do business with the teller are longer as a result. Of course they are. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're talking ride sharing. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Paul, you're on the air.
Morning, Paddy. How are you?
Best kind. How about you?
Best kind. I'll do you solid, boy. You're going on holidays. I'll be easy.
You take your best shot.
It wouldn't work anyway. It wouldn't work anyway, would it, boy?
No, not a chance.
Paddy, what I'm calling you about this past week is about the ride sharing, the companies that are here and everything else. As you know, I'm a taxi driver, or a local taxi driver. And last week they're on the news. I guess Sarah Studley and John Abbott were on talking about road safety and everything else. And then Uber came on announcing about this notification you get on your phone about wearing a seatbelt. Well, that's mandatory anyway. That's a safety feature everybody knows and should be doing it anyway. But my concern is we've been driving. Some of our customers have tried Uber and everything else and have came back to us and and said, yeah, okay, we tried it, no big deal, whatever. They waited a long time to get a car. Issues they're having is that people with families with kids like under 16. Now, my concern is the vulnerable sector check, of course, right? They should be having it if they're driving kids under 16. You see them at the airport taking, families and everything, right? At the ride-sharing parking locations they have at the airport, they have 4 out there. So they're coming out, 3 and 4 year old kids, 5 and 6 year old kids, and they're just getting in the back seat and going on. Now, in Canada, I suppose it's all in Canada, but I know for sure in Newfoundland that kids under a certain age and certain weight and certain height and everything else in our industry, in the taxi industry, they must be confined to a booster seat or car seat. Uber don't offer this option to people, but they're telling them it's okay to get aboard.
Yeah, I mean, the booster seat is a tricky one because we all, of course, understand the child seat, the child safety seat, and, of course, forward-facing, backwards-facing, all those types of variables. But the booster is a tricky one because it basically comes down to height and weight, doesn't it? Because I would imagine my boys grew out of the booster maybe quicker than some of their other pals because they were just tall enough where the seatbelt didn't compromise. It wasn't up around their neck. So, yeah, if I'm an Uber driver, it's just too easy to have a booster or 2 boosters in the trunk. To offer that safe ride for my customers or my passengers. But I don't know. Like, is it mandatory in a taxi cab?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
It should be.
The thing is about a taxi cab, like, we have them. All the taxi companies have them. All you got to do is phone and ask for it. Yeah. And we're more than helpful to send a vehicle. Like, we have vans, especially now with the immigration and the new Canadians. There's families here with 5 and 6 kids, right? So when they go to a doctor's appointment, it's a doctor's appointment for the family. So they would book a van with 2 booster seats in the car seat or 2 car seats in the booster seat and what have you, right? And we have that available. It's only a matter of just, calling and asking for it, and we're more than happy to supply it, right? But I had a lady on, I think it was on Monday, I believe, and she comes out and we see this, I do anyway, we all see it. They've been here 3 months or 4 months in operation now, right? So, you get the tendency to see the cars, you got the little stickers on the Ubers and this and that and everything else, right? So you see them at the apartment buildings especially. And some, like I said, some of our old customers want to try a new thing or whatever. Some of them are starting, like they crept away for a little bit. Now a lot of them are starting to creep back because they're not getting the service that they got with the taxi company, would say, right? So the thing is that for these drivers in these Uber vehicles to be telling people that it's okay. I mean, there's got to be something, were they given a set of rules and regulations from the government, from the provincial government, from Sarah Studley or John Abbott or whatever the case may be, when they were hired? It's mandatory to put a kid in the car seat. It's mandatory for a kid to be in the booster seat. Like, I don't know, like I know the RNC, like they were looking into some stuff too, like about the vulnerable sector checks and everything, and that's another thing. These kids are under the age of 16, right? And you got people driving them around with no vulnerable sector checks, right? Yeah,
just let's elaborate on that for a second. So there's 2. There's the criminal background check, and then there's the vulnerable sector check, predominantly about sexual-related charges, and especially when we talk about children. So apparently at this moment in time, the ride-sharing companies only have to conduct a criminal background check. It's an option, but it has to be requested by the company and approved by the driver to get the vulnerable sector check. That's a real loophole that the government can close very, very easily. And if I'm in the ride-sharing business, and I know some of these concerns have been voiced by you and me and others, I'm going to advertise my company like this. I'm going to say we have booster seats and we have child safety seats, and all our drivers have a vulnerable sector check on top of a criminal background check. I bet you for some passengers that'll make a difference.
Yeah, I do. And all the taxi companies here, I'm not just speaking for one, and you know who I drive for, for Jiffy, but I'm speaking for all of us. All of us that do in the taxi industry, we have that. And sometimes it makes me wonder, is that why they're not taxi drivers and they're Uber drivers? Because of the vulnerable sector check? It'll make you think, right?
I agree, 100%. And I don't know why the province would have made it that way either, because this is all amended legislation to allow for ride-sharing to come to town in the first place. Why not oblige them to do exactly what's committed, or pardon me, what the traditional cab companies have to do? I can't understand why there's a difference.
Well, okay, so Premier Furey was just in Quebec there not long, a couple of days ago, I guess, for the Premier's meetings or whatever the case may be. And he talked about Legault, about immigration and all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. He should have talked to Legault about the $145 million lawsuit that was just passed down in Quebec for the taxi drivers. That was only 2 weeks ago. They just won a lot enough. So that's Ottawa got 215 million. The Quebec taxi drivers just got 145 million. And this is a lot of the reason they're doing it, because the ride-sharing companies are coming in and they don't have to follow or abide by the same rules as a taxi driver. And what really pisses me off is that Mr. Fury had the nerve on TV down in Kitty Vitty to say that he's going to make it an even and level playing field, and it exists in every other province, and it's all working this and everything else. And he announced that day down there in Kitty Vitty that he would look into the insurance rates for the taxi drivers. It's been over 3 months and not a word on it from Sarah Studley or Fury or any of them at the provincial government level. Not a thing.
We'll follow up with Minister Studley on some of the gaps inside the ride-sharing business. And I have to say, I haven't taken an Uber or any of the ride-sharing companies here. The last couple of rides I've had, I just got in a regular cab. And matter of fact, it was a Jiffy. But I don't know why it is, but like I'm traveling this week, and inevitably, by habit, when I arrive at the airport, I'm just going to get an Uber. I don't even know why I do that, because around here I'm conscientious of it because of the arguments that you've made in the past, which I think absolutely hold water. Add into some of the grey areas that are out there regarding the unpredictability of how much you're going to pay inside an Uber. You'll know when you look at your phone. But if I have a predictable charge of a taxi cab to go from the Scotiabank building on Water Street to my home, I know how much it costs. And it costs that much whether I go at 10 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock at night. If it's a party downtown or Shania Twain over at Churchill Square, I'm going to pay more for ride sharing. Why? Because it's the surge pricing, as they refer to it. So lots of things people should be aware of before they pick and choose who they're going to ride with.
Yeah, Paddy, there's just one more thing too about the ride sharing.
Okay.
Downtown, that was a big deal about bringing in ride sharing. Danny Breen started it all, like the shortage of taxis and blah, blah, blah. You can go downtown any night now in the Layboy down there, and if you throw a rock, you'd hit 27 taxis, right? Any night down there. It's full down there every night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, especially summer now with George Street Festival coming down. But if you go around the corner, you go up on Queen's Road in front of Three Cheers Pub, they're up in front of Julie Burns' place, 4 or 5 or 6 non-marked cars, they're ride-sharing cars, and they're standing outside their cars with their phones telling people that they're ride-sharing drivers. And if they need a ride home, they'll do it. Now, it's illegal. We know it's illegal. And I'd like for the RNC or the city or whoever bylaw, I think Matt was looking into the taxi inspector as far as I know. I haven't talked to him, but I've heard rumours that they've been kind of trying to keep an eye on it with the bylaw officers. They've been driven out of it 3 or 4 times. The thing is with these young people that come out, they're all buckled up. You know what it's like. We were all young one time coming out of George Street. You don't care how you get home, just as long as you get home. So they're walking up there, and these guys are telling them, yeah, they're rideshare drivers and everything. They're showing them around. And maybe they are. But there's one thing you got to understand. If they're Uber, Lyft, whatever companies are here now, Cabby or whatever the case may be, if you don't go through that app and through the company is the one that's carrying the insurance to get you safely home in case anything happens. If you're going with one of these guys not on the app, and they drive you home, and it's fine and dandy, you get home safe and sound and everything else, and you do an e-transfer or you pay him cash, while you're sitting in the back of that car, if you get T-boned or anything on the way home, you're not covered under the insurance policy.
Fair enough. Paul, anything else before I take another call?
No, just enjoy your holiday and be safe.
You too, pal. Thanks.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye. I just keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 3. Shirley, you're on the air. Hi, Shirley.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How about you?
Oh, hanging in.
Okay.
But anyway, I tell you what I was calling you for today. The tellers at the bank, I usually have to use a teller. Other than that, I got to get somebody else to do my banking. It's because of visual issues. Even with the ITM, if I go to try to use that, I don't like losing my independence either, by the way. When I got to use it, if the green light that's on the side of the ATM flashes, then it bothers my sight, and I can't see what I'm doing. And then I get really frustrated, and then I can't remember certain things.
When people
so
have...
I need a teller.
I understand. And when people have a circumstance such as yours, then there should be no option for the bank. I mean, if they want to keep their customers, if they're going to...
No, I haven't had a problem.
Okay, that's good.
My husband usually does my banking or whatever. But any time I have gone into the Bank of Commerce, I haven't had a problem with them. Okay, I might have had to wait a few minutes or something like that, but I haven't had no issues with them. So that part's good.
That is good. Yep.
But my other issue is I still can't get my urine test or a certain test done to see if I still got mycotoxins in my body. And every other day I wake up, I got different symptoms. And I don't have a family doctor right now. He dismissed me on June the 6th. I went to see him for an incident that I was having because I thought I had another kidney stone because last year on August the 3rd I ended up in hospital with a kidney stone, which wasn't too bad, I suppose, because I passed it as gravel. Didn't know what it was. But anyway, he said, no, you don't. He was nasty, and he said, no, you don't have another kidney stone. He didn't examine me. He never even looked at me. Anyway, so I said, well, may I ask another question of something that's bothering me? He said, no. He said, I just told you don't have a kidney stone. And he said, as of this minute, I think that's what he said. Now, let's forget the minute because I'm not sure if he said that now or not. He said, you are dismissed. And that's the same as being laid off. And my reply, I was frustrated too then. My reply said, feeling is mutual. I'm dismissing me from you too. And that's the same as being fired. So I don't have a family doctor.
Are you back on the list to get one?
I'm on the list with Patient Connect.
Right, okay, good.
Now, I went in, I can do research online. That's the only thing I can do because I can't remember what I'm reading. I'm the type of person I have to be able to read it and see it to remember. I know, I've studied things in chiropractic about feeling, seeing, touch, and auditorial. Most people that can get a real good memory, they can just look at it. My husband can look at the computer. He's auditorial as far as I'm concerned, and he knows what he's doing. He can remember. I can't do that. So if I see something on the internet after I'm doing research, I usually got to write it down to go back to reread it. Because other than that, I can't see the screen very well. So anyway, this is what I wanted to say. I went in on the line. Excuse my voice. I'll tell you a little story on that later. I went in on the line, Health and Community Service with Eastern Health. Okay, it tells you got they do the form, LTSA form, but they have to state this for mold toxicity. And that's what we've had. When I saw my doctor 6 years ago, Wade and I, he told us our bodies were poisoned. We had mold toxicity. Now, when he does anything, he did up 2 notes, and they got sent back to him because one he sent to the chemistry department. And on the note he sent to the chemistry department was an OK form that his receptionist called over and they faxed it over to him. He filled that out. And on the form, when he sent it to the chemist, that microbiologist, he said it was I had no mold, or I don't know the whole word. I got a copy of it here. He said I had nothing in my body bothering me that was taken care of. And what he's talking about was when we had mold in the bowels. That's a long story. That was taken care of in about 2 months.
Well, I guess the good news is it's been taken care of. I don't understand how doctors dismiss people. I mean, it's not the military. And hopefully you get a doctor sooner or later with the Patient Connect. It took me a while. I even forgot I was even on the list by the time I got a call and said, we have a doctor for you, which I was quite pleased with, and she's excellent. I wish you well, Shirley. I've got to get going to the break, but you take good care of yourself.
I just want to mention the test that most doctors are looking at is IgE for mold allergies. I don't have mold allergies. I've been to Dr. O'Keefe and another doctor. I've been to them twice, and they said, Shirley, you got no allergies. And mold allergies is completely different than mold toxicity.
Okay.
Mold toxicity is poison in your body.
It sounds unpleasant. That's about all I can say to that. Shirley,
Yeah,
I have to get going. I appreciate your time.
You'll feel pretty sick, believe me.
I would imagine. You take good care.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thanks, Shirley.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to say good morning to the VP of Operation with the Mental Health Foundation of Canada. That's Sarah Furlong. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. Say good morning to Sarah Furlong, who's the VP of Operations with the Mental Health Foundation of Canada. Good morning, Sarah. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thanks. How about you?
Good. I just wanted to express our concern about the wildfires in Labrador and the impact on mental health. So we were actually in contact with a few amazing artists in Newfoundland. I'm going to name a couple. We've decided to host a fundraising event next Wednesday down at the Rock House for $10. All proceeds will go to support victims, shelter, and any supports that they need for the displaced. So we have Russell Bowers, who's actually going to be hosting the event. So a huge thank you to Russell at VOCM. Eddie Eastman's going to be headlining. We have Carla Pilgrim, Max Stringer, Rodney Slade, and a couple of other fabulous musicians.
Sounds
so
terrific.
You can get tickets.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So you can get tickets at the door for $10, and we're all, because it's we're just trying to figure out with the venue now if we can get anything online, or if anyone wants to donate, then they can do so at info at mentalhealthfoundationofcanada.com.
Fantastic, and hopefully it's a big success. My subject line says the All-Party Committee. Have you had interaction with the All-Party Committee that struck regarding mental health and addictions?
Yes, we actually did, Patty. So myself, Glenn Royal, and Pam Party went in yesterday and sat with the All-Party Committee. So as you discussed earlier, the All-Party Committee was founded, a few years ago. John Hogan is actually the chair. So we sat with John, we sat with Paul Pike of CSSD, other MHAs, and it was honestly eye-opening. And we were honored to be there and sit down at the table.
What about it was eye-opening?
Well, we got to share all of our life stories, other stories that we heard from mental health concerns of the public. There are definitely some things in the system that's going on that, key stakeholders at a higher level are not fully aware of. So it just kind of brought things, to life in the room, and they were able to take our message and take our recommendations with process and implementation. And I can actually send that along to you, Patty, and then you can forward it along to whoever you like. It's certainly, the presentation's open to see.
Yeah, please do send it along. And I'm not going to get you to comment on this if you don't want to, but in something interesting you just said about just maybe, some of the people in the decision-making positions aren't fully aware of the reality on the ground, fully aware of the reality for so many individuals and families here in the province and across the country. And I don't like necessarily saying these things out loud, but I think the same thing can be said for a variety of issues in this world. So when we talk about decisions made regarding the fishery, maybe people making the decisions don't know much about the fishery. And specifically with our mental health conversation, I really do feel, and it sure feels like, some of the decision makers just aren't in tune with what's actually happening, just aren't in tune with the lack of access and the disparity between rural and urban, and the issue regarding continuity of care and long-term access to mental health care. I'm just not sure people have been able to wrap their minds around it.
Yeah, and I think the conversation goes back to, when people think mental health, a lot of people just associate it with the small percentage of people who are undergoing psychosis or, acute mental illness, depression, severe situations. But on a day-to-day, and this is what we're trying to push at the Mental Health Foundation, is that mental health impacts everyone. It could be the weather. It could be your family relationships. It could be your work environment, anything at all. It could be very superficial, but at the same time, there also could be a lot of stress going on. And that could involve, CSSD. There's drug abuse, addictions, trauma, abuse, the list goes on. So, I think mental health impacts everyone, and it's time that we end the stigma to not look at it as a negative. Let's look at it as a positive and how we can work together as a community. And that's why I liked how they actually came out with on VOCM the link for the open feedback until August 2nd. Mm-hmm. So I'm just suggesting for everyone, it's really, really important to go out and do that. Give your feedback. Give your experiences. Whatever you guys can do, it's your voice. It's your voice to better our community, better our province. And, without your voice, they won't know. They won't know anything. They won't know how to go about making the changes. So we need to kind of stand up and say, listen, this is what we need. They're doing a great job. What can we do to make it better?
Fair enough, and people should participate and not be afraid to share their stories. Sharing personal stories is probably the most effective tool we have available to reduce things like stigma, as you've already mentioned. Exactly. Of course, I'm not a mental health professional, but I've had lots of conversations with people telling their personal stories, both on and off air, spoken to plenty of mental health advocates and support groups and mental health care professionals. And one thing that jumps out to me, and it kind of came across as a minor point, but I'm going to make it here on the show this morning, and this is just based on information I've got from people who actually know what they're talking about. Being mentally unwell or having a mental illness, it needn't be crippling before you get help, because it might not even be aware of what it's doing to your day-to-day life. If you have just the slightest bit of an anxiety disorder or depression or what have you, you think you've got it managed. You manage to compartmentalize. You get through your workday. You manage to navigate your family affairs. But maybe, just maybe, not to the best of your ability. So that little loss in peace and happiness can have an effect that you might not even recognize, because you think you're doing a good job.
Yeah, and Patty, I'm not a health professional by no means. It's just personal experience. But when I kind of use the analogy, and through my programs that I've taken, is that it's almost like that boiling pot of water. You got your Sunday dinner cooking, you put in your vegetables, and all of a sudden it overflows. It overflows because you kind of took your attention away. You didn't lower down the volume. So this is what happens. And, you can be at work all day long and, things build up. Then maybe you come home and have an argument with the spouse, or maybe it's your children. And then, oh, my God, by the end of the night, you say, I cannot wait to go to bed. So what can we do to help alleviate everyone's stresses? What can we do to lower the cortisol levels? Because ultimately, if you have a disability, a mental health issue, statistics show that you also have other occurring disabilities, and that impacts your mental health. So it's just wrap around mental wellness awareness.
100%. Sarah, I'm glad you made time for the show this morning. Thanks for the call.
Thank you so much. And
you give the folks details on your event that's upcoming one more time, if you like.
Sure. So next Wednesday at the Rock House, we have Russell Bowers hosting, Eddie Eastman, Max Stringer, Carla Pilgrim. $10 at the door at 9 p.m.
Appreciate the time. Good luck with it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. We know that Kevin Guest has already said he's going to seek the nomination representing the PCs in the by-election that's going to be yet to be announced, I guess, in Waterford Valley. Jesse Wilkins is in the queue. He wants to talk about his desires. Juan has got a question about what he sees on Thorburn Road, whatever that might be. And Gary wants to talk about something that makes my skin crawl. Bed bugs. Ugh, don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's see here. Is that a 2? Okay, that's a 2. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to Jesse Wilkins. He's seeking the nomination for the PCs, representing the party in the by-election of Waterford Valley. Jesse, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. What a beautiful day it is.
'Tis hot out there today.
Oh, yes. Expect to go to 30, I believe. I really appreciate your time and giving me the opportunity to use your platform.
No problem. Let's hear it.
I am seeking the nomination, yeah. And as you know, I have quite a lot of community involvement and quite active in the area of the Waterford Valley. So I've seen some of the decisions that have been made by our present Liberal government, and as a result of that, I've no other choice but to put my name forward. And I got to say, the amount of community support that I've had so far, just with the nomination, has been outstanding. A lot of people at social media and phone calls, and so I think a lot of people are ready for change.
Give us some specifics of what you've seen in Waterford Valley that you think it calls for change.
Well, I see people that there's no housing. There's no place for people to live. I mean, I see homeless all over the downtown area, which is a huge, huge problem. And, I see also, to try to fix for the homeless, and try to to look at what they did with the hotel down there and the waste of money with the government of the hotel, and I think that they're trying, but just they're making the wrong decisions. So I think the old saying goes, if you want to make change, and you can talk about it, but unless you're willing to put your name forward, I don't think you should be really. So for me, I'm ready to do that. I'm ready, and you know what, Tom Osborne has been in this area for quite a long time, and he's been a friend of mine for over 20 years. And if I can do what he has done in this area, which is every time someone called him, they got a call back and they got a response, and that's what I want to do for my constituents.
Well, regardless of people like Tom or Osborne or the Liberals or period, but obviously 28 years as an elected official in that district, and the reputation he has as a constituency man was pretty solid. People could disagree with how he handled the portfolio of health or anything else under the sun, but for his constituents, I think, I can't speak for every single one and every single call or every single email, but his reputation in the constituency always seemed to be pretty solid.
Absolutely, and they use them for issues and problems with the government, in different departments. So there's no doubt, there's big shoes to fill there. But from knowing him and helping him, in his campaigns, so I've learned a lot. That the constituents are number one. I mean, you can try to make your difference on the Hill and the legislation and this sort of thing, and be effective there. But when your constituents call you, if you're not replying to them and you're not answering them, I mean, they're the ones that are going to make the determination whether or not you're going to be a successful MHA or not.
100%. I'm just going to bounce this off you and see what you think. So I've made this reference here earlier this week. So, of course, it's been a Liberal seat for the past while, but Tom Osborne also won it as a PC. And, it feels like on Humber Bay Violence, Eddie Joyce. It seems like he'd win that seat regardless of who he ran for. I think the same could be said, for instance, for Paul Lane, Mount Pearl Southlands. And I think the same could be said in Waterford Valley. That's a real toss-up here. People will talk about time for a change, and it was a Liberal seat. It kind of felt like a Tom Osborne seat.
Absolutely. You know what? No matter where he ran, if he ran this district, whether it was the red, the blue, or the orange, he would have been successful because he looked after his people. And that's the answer. You look after the constituents and make sure that when they phone you, that you do the best and everything. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes it has to be a no. But when they know that you've done everything under your power to try to help them, it makes a difference when it comes to the polling. And that's where I want to go. I mean, I also want to make a difference when it comes to legislation. I mean, I've heard your callers so far this morning. Almost all of them are provincial government issues. The ride sharing, that's provincial legislation. No family doctors, provincial. All of those issues, I mean, we have to do something to try to help these people. I mean, and it seems to me that this present government, they're just not getting it done. They really aren't.
Well, I wish you good luck. Have you ever taken a shot at any level of politics in the past, Jesse?
No, sir. The majority of my experience in this world has been dealing with people, yes, but law enforcement. As an RCMP officer, a constabulary officer, and, I've always been helping people through difficult times. So this is brand new for me. I mean, I've had a lot of involvement in the community and done a lot of community services. But going into politics is something new, and, I have a great group of people around me that are helping me and family that are supporting me. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, if I get the constituents and I get the people on my side, I think I can really have it be effective. So.
Well, I wish you good luck as you take on... at this point, I guess, it's yourself and Kevin Guest who's had some involvement with the party over the years. So 2 people going for the PC nomination, only 1 at this moment in time that I know of going for the Liberal nomination. That's Jamie Corab, St. John City Councillor. I don't think the NDP have opened up their nominations yet, nor have I heard anyone say that they're willing or wanting to run for that particular party in Waterford Valley, but I wish you nothing but the best of luck. Thanks for this, Jesse.
Okay, before I go,
sure.
Can I change hats for a second here and make an announcement?
Sure.
Okay, the Shea Heights Folk Fest is this weekend. So starting tonight on the 18th, of course, we have our Community Centre Social at the Community Centre on Shea Heights with a candlelight vigil for those that we've lost in the community. And after that, there'll be a plus 19 social for people. Tomorrow, Friday, kids karaoke on our field, where the kids can get up on our stage, and we'll have a little barbecue for them and some games and karaoke. And this is all free access, by the way, Patty, so there's no charge for any of this. And July the 20th is our main event. The music starts here at 12:30, and our headliner, one of our own, Nick Earl. So we have tickets available here, and we'll have our beer tent, of course, open. We have great prices where we have discounts for people with families of 4, so if you bring your family, you get a reduced rate. And that's going to run right through until close to midnight on Saturday. And then the 21st, we have a antique car show at St. John Bosco School. and again, free access from 3 to 4. And our closing ceremonies will be at the Shea Heights Field. Fireworks and weather permitting, and also we have to check on the fire ban with that, make sure we're good with that. That's hoping to go off between 9 and 10.
Sounds awesome. Shea Heights is an envy of a lot of neighborhoods, tight-knit community up there, and hopefully, and I'm sure this will be a big success and a big turnout. And Nick Earl, Nick's fantastic.
Yes, he's one of our own. Actually, I think one of the first times he performed was on the Shea Heights Folk Fest stage. So it might have been 5 years old.
Well, I tell you, he's come a long way because he really is a brilliant performer. He really, truly is.
Yeah, and we're proud to have him.
No doubt you are.
So we're hopefully anybody that wants to come up and show up for that event will be a great 4 days of good times and bringing our community together.
Appreciate the time, Jesse. Good luck.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Jesse Wilkins seeking the PC nod to run in the by-election in Waterford Valley. The by-election yet to be called. Let's keep going. Line number 4. Juan, you're on the air.
Hey there. Good morning, Patty. I hope you're doing well.
Doing fine, thank you.
I wanted to get in very quickly. I just have a very quick question, and then just follow up with a quick comment about that wonderful story that an earlier caller shared with us. But anyway, so my wife and I were over here in Carbonear, and we went into town, and we get off what I call the belt line. I guess it's referred to something else over there. So we're driving down Thornbird Road, and I think I pronounced the name of it correctly. So anyway,
it's Thornbird.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So my wife happens to be driving, so I'm in the passenger seat, and so lo and behold, I forget exactly where we are. I'm sorry. People are going to think that that I've already started drinking in the morning or whatever. But anyway, there is a dinosaur on Thornbird Road, and I wonder if you know if it's a local attraction or what is it, that is showing the dinosaurs on Thornbird Road? Because this one dinosaur, it was on wheels, and it was right there, right next to the road. You could almost reach your hand out the window and touch it.
Just for clarification, Juan, have you been drinking?
No, only my water. No.
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't know there was a dinosaur on Thorburn Road, and I have no idea what it is. None. But I'm sure someone listening to the program must know that some family put it out there, or maybe a business has it out there as an attraction. I don't know.
No, no. This is life size. Huge, and this is not the only one.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll take a spin up Thorburn Road.
One's there.
Yeah, maybe right after happy hour I'll have a spin up. So, when you say life size, like how tall a dinosaur are we talking about?
I would say it was taller than any average or tall middle school kid. I'm 6 feet tall. If we had been thinking fast enough or actually saw it come up, me being the way I am, we would have stopped the car. Hopped out, got a picture or something. But no, these are, it was like a life-size, Velociraptor. If you're familiar with Jurassic Park movies or whatever like that, that's what it looked like to me. So, and I could see back there was like a driveway or something, and it looked like there were a couple other ones, back there. So anyway, so if somebody can call in and assure me, that I wasn't, temporarily hallucinating, that would be nice.
Well, apparently we have an answer for you. So after I say goodbye, I'm going to take another call. Apparently this person might know about these dinosaurs on Thorburn Road.
Okay, and the other real quick comment, I was really touched by the woman's story at the gas station where the young gentleman went in before she did and ended up paying for her gas because, I think we all know that those are called random acts of kindness. I try to be aware of that and try to engage in that whenever I can. I was at the local mall here in Carbonear one day, and there were 2 or 3 young kids, I guess grade school or something like that, buying soda, candy, or whatever, and they were going through their pockets, to come up with their change to pay it, and I just leaned over and I told the clerk, I'll take care of it, so I paid, their bill or whatever. They turned around, staring at me like I had 3 horns or something, but, it doesn't take a whole lot, I don't think, to try to spread kindness whenever it's possible. And I really did appreciate the earlier caller sharing her story because it was real nice to hear that. So anyway, I could.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I enjoyed it too. I thought it was lovely.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll just listen to the explanation for the dinosaurs.
Sounds good. Thanks for the call, Juan.
Great. Thanks.
You're welcome. There you go. It's our friend from North Carolina, the right Juan. Let's go. Line number 3. James, you're on the air.
Hey, Paddy. How's it going, buddy?
Top shelf, man. You?
Good, boy. That dinosaur thing, that's Buddy Squires, who used to own Action there on Hebron Way.
Oh, Ross Squires.
Yeah, Ross, that's his name, yeah. He got it up there. I haven't been there myself, but apparently it's pretty cool. So I just want to let the other gentleman know and all the other listeners so they don't think he's nuts.
No, apparently not. And I got a bunch of direct messages, and I'm going to bet that they're about the dinosaurs too. So I hadn't been down Thorburn Road in quite a long time. Can't remember the last time I was out that way. But maybe I'll take a spin and have a look now. They seem to be pretty popular.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Actually, little fella's asking me to take him out, so I might have to do that one day soon.
Good on you. I know certainly when my boys were young, dinosaurs were all the rage.
Yeah, my little fella, he was in the dinosaurs, now he's in the airplanes. He's 13 and he's adamant about being a pilot. So
is that right?
He's either going to be a pilot or an archaeologist.
Well, there's room for both of those. I mean, the jobs are there for the pilots. And as a matter of fact, my youngest is at flight school right now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Pretty cool. All right, James, I appreciate the info, buddy.
All right, have a good day, Paddy.
You too, man.
See you, buddy. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Gary's there, still in the queue. Appreciate the patience to talk about the old bed bugs. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Well, something that I knew nothing about, now I know a lot about. So we're actually going to talk to the gentleman who's behind the dinosaur park. And let me just say, as a collective reply to the emails, of which there's about 50, telling me about the dinosaur park, I appreciate the information. Let's keep rolling. Let's go to line number 5. Gary, you're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Daly.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing? My name is Gary. I was talking to you a couple of weeks ago about being homeless and couch surfing and trying to find a place to live. And right after your show, your producer gave me a number of a certain apartment complex here in the city, and I won't name it, and said there was availability there. And I went through the process of going down and having a look, and I said, yeah, I'll take it. And for the last two weeks, I've been wondering what's on the go. How come we haven't moved things further ahead so fastly, like in 10 business days at least? It wouldn't take that long to have all the I's dotted, T's crossed and stuff like that. And anyways, they said they had an infestation in this apartment complex of bed bugs.
Oh.
Adjacent to the place where I was supposed to be renting was really infested, and they were getting inside the place where I was supposed to rent. So I have all the subsidies, and where I'm a veteran and I'm being subsidized by Newfoundland Labrador Housing. That went through, and income support paid the dividend. I had to borrow monies to come up with the rest of the damage deposit and a portion of the rent, which they all have now, this apartment complex do. I was supposed to meet the lady at 9 o'clock this morning to sign the lease, and yesterday, after I got off the phone with her, about 3 minutes later, someone from the property who owns this property called me, management, and said that the place is still seeing signs of bed bugs. after being sprayed by PCO. I guess within the last 2 weeks. I don't know if it's an ongoing thing. I'm in the dark kind of thing, and so I have decided, and the lady told me that she doesn't really want to rent the place to me, where there's bed bugs still coming from wherever, and for me to be attacked by a bed bug infestation. Everything was running really smoothly until like 10 after 9 yesterday. I was going to change the electricity over, move in, and I was, tickle pink. And thank you for your help, by the way, and your producer, whomever gave me that number. I'm grateful to you guys, and I'm calling you this morning because I'm back in duress. And yesterday I went down to the Comfort Inn to see if I could get in there, and there's a big sign on the door. No, it's not open to the public, so you can't even go in and talk to somebody in there and get a referral and find out the scoop of how you could get into a room there temporarily, even until I get a place without bed bugs or what have you. And they sent me to the outreach program in Mundy Pond, and that's for the End Homeless program.
Yep.
And went up there talking to some lady, and I'm not going to say her name. She wasn't a social worker. She was there to help people. I forget, BSE. I don't know what that stood for, but basically she said all the monies that have been sent from the government to this property place. There's no way for anybody to help me now. I'm stuck, so I can't take that. I guess I'm going to have to get a refund and send it back to them. I guess they'll take the money back to government. I mean, it's not my money. I don't have keys to get into this place. The place is not in my name. I didn't sign a lease, and I'm back to square one. So within the last 2 weeks, I could have been looking really further and harder for a place within the parameters of what I'm entitled to, like, be subsidized. There's the $9.90 cap, heat and light included, $8.50 pay your own utilities. So I'm calling you today because the voice of the common man, VOCM stands for, is to vocalize under freedom of speech here about what's going on in your life, and hopefully somebody out there in the airways and yourself and the great show you got can help me out to get out of this dilemma. I don't know how to get into this Comfort Inn, sir, and I'm an ex-veteran. I had double disectomy done May 16th. I had a major widowmaker heart attack in July of 2017. I worked all my life, 5 years in Vancouver, 15 years in Alberta. And now I'm just trying to get a place to live, and it's getting really tough mentally.
I thought we had you sorted out, Gary, to be honest with you, because I know exactly who you were dealing with, and I'll leave their names out of it too, and I had no idea there was anything to do with bed bugs, but because I do know who you're dealing with, I'm happy to send along a note to them right during this break and see if they can give us some sort of update as to what's going on, what timelines might look like, because bed bugs are a problem, man, and they're tough to get rid of.
Mr. Daly, she told me that I asked, was it eradicated yesterday, and one lady said there was no signs, and then the person who, I guess she's her boss, the leasing agent, told me I was supposed to meet her this morning. So at 3 minutes later, I guess it's the property lady, she called me and told me there's still signs of bed bugs. So she does not want to rent this place to me because the bed bugs are still coming into the apartment. So you understand, it's not eradicated. So
I tell you what,
I don't know if I don't know if that's a bad thing. I don't want to go down somewhere where I'm going to be eaten alive by bed bugs.
No, of course not. But what I'm going to do is, when I put you on hold, you're going to speak with David. Yeah. He's going to give you someone's private cell phone number, and I think this is exactly the people you're dealing with and talking to. He's going to give you the live update right now, and maybe, just maybe, we can help try to figure this out.
Yes, but if that don't work, sir, how about the Comfort Inn that goes down there? And the guy said there's 26 people living there right now.
Yeah.
Is there a vetting situation you had to go through? A certain criteria, mental incapacity or disability, physical disability, medical disability, like just even to get your foot in the door to get off to get out of where I am to work forward. And I got Veterans Affairs. They will only pay the first month. And your damage deposit, they don't pay for continuous amounts of money, but they can help with psychology because I have an addiction of alcoholism also. that I'm 4 years and like 8 days sober now. So
good for you.
It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough when you're fighting an addiction and just trying to basically survive right now at 57. So, I'm calling your show because you do a wonderful job helping people, and that's what it's all about, Trying to help another. And Newfoundlanders are a fairly good bunch of people. I lived all across Canada since I'm 17 years old in the military and stuff, and at City Street. And that's all I want is a bit of help back, and I'm the kind of person to give you a shirt off my back. If I got $10, I'll buy a homeless person a slice of pizza. So I'm good-hearted, and that's all I want.
Gary, when I put you on hold and you speak with Dave, he's going to give you two numbers. One for the crew you're dealing with for an update, and another one for the comfort in and the vetting process, the eligibility process. You're going to get two numbers from Dave. Call them both. Let me know if it works out. If it doesn't, we'll try to figure it out.
Yes, Mr. Daly. You know what? God bless you. And you have a great day. You and your family. May the good Lord look after all you guys.
Same to you, Gary. Stay in touch.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All the best.
Okay, bye.
All right. See if we can get Gary sorted out. Let's try to take a break on time. When we come back, equalization's in the queue. And the man himself behind the Dinosaur Park, Ross Squires, he's also there. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go. Line number one. Lindsay, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Paddy.
Morning to you.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the equalisation payments that Premier Fury was talking about on the news last night.
Sure.
Okay, like you're saying, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island, I think it's since 2010, has got $150 billion, something like that.
No, the rest of the Atlantic provinces, since we were off equalization 2008, they've got about $48 billion.
He said something about $150 billion in the news last night.
Well, maybe 150 billion.
Maybe
150 billion for every province in the country since that date.
No, I think it was, and I divided that into three, so that's about $50 billion each. Well, he said Newfoundland and Labrador gets nothing, zero.
Well, let me just give you some numbers for consideration here. Let's just pick one province, Nova Scotia, because they get the most for any of the Atlantic provinces. Last year they got $2.8 billion. The year before is about $2.4 billion. Averages around there. They cleared $2 billion back in 2018, 2019. So if you add it all up, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28. So $28 billion approximately for Nova Scotia. So it's about $48 billion for the Atlantic provinces, not $148 billion.
That's why I understood it last night in the news, because that's what Premier Andrew Fury was saying. And they plan, I don't think that British Columbia has gotten theirs either. The Premier of British Columbia was at that meeting, and they're planning on taking the federal government to court to get theirs, I think, because they were saying that Newfoundland and Labrador could use their lawyers or their access to the same thing that they got.
Yeah, what David Eby said, the Premier of BC, is that they're going to join our court challenge as an intervener. The Attorney General in British Columbia is currently looking at the possibility for them to launch their own court challenge. But you're right, he's in full support. There are 6 provinces got equalisation last year in the country: Quebec, Manitoba, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, and Ontario. Alberta, BC, Newfoundland, Labrador, Saskatchewan did not. Neither of those provinces have received equalisation since 2010. I don't think Alberta's ever got it.
Well, we should be getting it, because I'm going to tell you right now, like Newfoundland and Labrador, down through the years, it's been the only province that's been given the federal government 100% return when they have an election, like been 7 out of 7, except for the last election. I think right now it's about 98, 99%, because here in Central Coastal Base, we got a PC candidate, Clifford Small. So now we got 6 out of 7. But we give the Liberals a greater return than any other province.
Yeah, but it's not about that. It's not about It's simply not about that, though, Lindsay. Just for the historical context here, the current equalisation formula that's being applied, that was renewed last year by the federal Liberals to 2029, was a formula that was first brought forward by the Conservatives and then Prime Minister Stephen Harper. So this is a formula based on the ability to generate revenue. It's not about what party is in power, how many members you elect from one party or another. It's a straight-up formula that's applied across the board. Now, the concept here is that it's not fair because it does not hit the target when we talk about the equitable opportunity to provide services, to the argument that the Premier is making here in this province. But it's not about the Liberals or the Tories, because this is an old Conservative formula that got rubber stamped.
Yeah, well, the way I see it is like this. We do this stuff and get them elected, and what do they do with us in return? They give us a kick in the teeth and shove carbon tax down our throats. That's all we're getting out of it.
Right. There are 3 provinces that have their own carbon tax scheme. British Columbia has the oldest one in the country. And there, I think there's a fair debate to be had about what it really means for the economy, how much money it challenges the provincial economy here and or the national economy. There's some numbers from the PBO that people can consider if they're so inclined. Of course, we're back on equalisation for the fiscal year 2024-2025 to the tune of $218 million. And just for a breakdown, and this is where people get crooked, because there are some loopholes that get applied, and it does have a direct relationship with the Upper Churchill too, where Hydro-Quebec is able to charge subsidized rates for their customers in Quebec. Quebec last year got over $14 billion. Manitoba got $3.5 billion. Nova Scotia, $2.8 billion. New Brunswick, $2.6 billion. Prince Edward Island, $561 million. Ontario, $421 million. And Alberta, BC, us, and Saskatchewan, 0. In total, the transfers were $23.1 billion, or $23.9 billion in equalization. And for major transfers from the feds to the provinces, total about, I think, $96 billion last year.
Yeah, but nothing though for Newfoundland and Labrador. You didn't say a word, mention Newfoundland and Labrador, but the rest of the provinces that were getting billions and billions of dollars.
I did. I mentioned Newfoundland and Labrador at least twice in those rattling off those numbers.
Yeah, but how much did that from the Upper Churchill? Like we didn't get anything from the Upper Churchill.
Yes, we do. We get very little, but we do.
Well, it must be very little because you never spoke about it. I'm still left in the dark. I don't know how much we got.
Well, since 1969, about, I think it's around $2.5 billion. The province of Quebec, closer to $28 billion. So certainly without the escalator clause, pittance when compared to the province of Quebec. We do get federal transfer dollars. There's 2 different pots of money that we get up. For starters, we get the big healthcare transfer like every other province in the country, but we do not get an equalization payment until 24-25.
Yeah, well, you see, that's the way we've been taken for a ride, as far as I'm concerned. Like we've been ripped off, or like we're getting the dirty end of the stick.
Okay.
That's just the way it is with Newfoundland. It's been that way ever since we got into Confederation.
Anything else this morning, Lindsay? What's going on out there? Okay, apparently the phone got knocked. So I don't know, maybe we'll have to get Lindsay back. Well, am I taking this call here now, David? You just clicked me through Ross Squires. Yeah, let's go. Ross, you're on the air.
Hi, Paddy.
Good morning.
Morning. I didn't know the Donaldsville would cause such a fuss.
Me neither. And to be honest with you, we've got a real phone problem going here now. I'll just try to give David some time to get sorted out here. Some sort of issue has jumped into the phone system here. Yeah, and in the equalization business, people will say, and this is just pretty standard political commentary, is that this is just another attempt by the Premier here in the province. People are talking about not running for the Liberals, running for Team Fury. And of course, they've taken some reference to Liberal off even some of the campaign signs. And so, yes, everybody sees the polls. Everybody knows that the Prime Minister is in hot water, politically speaking, when people look at their preferred leader. The gap between the Conservatives and the Liberals at this moment in time, across the board, there's maybe some slight discrepancy between the numbers, but it's around 20 to 22 points, which is a long way back, regardless of how you slice it. And again, the issue regarding equalization, and I think the Premier was right to say that this isn't necessarily just a shot at the federal Liberals. They just happen to be in power because the exact formula being used today was created by the Conservatives. It's just that in 2023, the Liberals just pushed forward the same formula to continue on into the future all the way to 2029. And one of the things that used to frustrate me about the equalisation conversation, and this specifically was out in Alberta. So then Premier Jason Kenney, and he would go all up and down all the way, Quebec this, Quebec that, and it's so unfair, the federal Liberals, da. When he was a senior cabinet minister in the Harper government that created the current formula that's being applied. And he used the same old thing that bleeds into people's minds about Alberta pays this, Alberta pays that. No, provinces don't pay equalisation. That's just not how anything works. Individual taxpayers pay into the equalisation formula, so the province doesn't cut a check. We all cut checks. We have taxes taken off of our paychecks, federally and provincially, and then come tax time in March of each year, we file our taxes. And so individuals, whether you live in the Alberta or Saskatchewan side of Lloydminster, the provinces did not pay equalisation. Individuals pay equalisation. So Alberta doesn't pay squat. It just so happens that they have the highest average rate of pay in the country and the lowest rate of taxation. Consequently, they're nowhere near qualifying for equalisation. And so Jason Kenney really did butcher that particular concept because he used the same old rhetoric which fires up the base, but doesn't mean it was accurate to say the very least. Let's finish our conversation on line number 2 with Lindsay. Lindsay, you're back on the air.
Okay, then.
I don't know what happened. We had a big phone conversation. Everything dropped off my screen.
Yeah, everything went. All I got was a dial tone.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But anyway, like I was saying, like what you just said then, that it's the taxpayers that pay the equalization, and not the province or the federal government or whatever, So, like we should get the same as, say, the 4 Atlantic provinces at least should get the same,
Yeah, and of course it is a bit more complicated than that, and I don't pretend to know the ins and outs of every single moving part of the equalisation formula, but it's straight up revenue side stuff. The ability for the province to raise money, whether it be through taxation, oil royalties, mining royalties, it's an all-in on revenue. So the fact of the matter is, since 2008, we have been a net giver to the country. Because we didn't qualify, because we had the revenue side issue covered. Well, insofar as this current formula is concerned anyway.
So going forward, and even right now, I think that Newfoundland and Labrador should get their back pay from equalization, what they owe us in the back from in the past, and going forward into the future, we should get that too. As well. Yeah, there's not going to be any retro pay. The best hope, I guess, is for some revisit of the current formula itself, because I'd be absolutely shocked if there was anything such as back pay, retro pay, or looking back one day. I don't know, and they can put forward whatever they want in the form of a court challenge. Plus, I don't even know if it's an actual challenge that holds much in the way of merit. I did speak with someone who I think really does have their finger on this particular pulse, and constitutionally speaking, the government is only obliged to make the equalisation payments, not obliged to change the formula because of a discrepancy in one province or another regarding equitable supply or delivery of services. Lindsay, I'll give you the final word because I got to go. Okay, that's all. But I want to say, it would be nice if we did get our back pay or sure. Pay that they owe us. That would be nice, and keep on going into the future. Get that. But anyway, thanks for having me, and I got to thank you for being able to put up with people like me. Listen to what we got to say. I appreciate your time. Yeah. Okay, then. Thank you very much. Thanks, Lindsay. Take care. Okay, right. Bye. Take care. All right, let's go ahead and get a break in. When we come back, we're going to the dinosaur park, or at least I wish we were. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 1, Ross Squires, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty.
Hi there.
Let's try this again.
Welcome to the program. So, I've got a few blind spots. I've got a lot of stuff jumbled up in my poor old brain, but I didn't even know about the dinosaur park. Tell us about it.
Well, the dinosaur park is something that I started the end of August last year was the first weekend with it. And it was something that I decided to do at the back of my property on Thorburn Road. And I was doing a haunted hike there for a couple of years called Nightmare on Thorburn Road. And a lot of people were asking if I had any summer attractions. And I've been thinking about it. And I just, I guess I went back in time trying to reinvent myself. And I went back so far as I found dinosaurs. And so I brought them back to the future with me, and here they are now on Thorburn Road. So we have 15 animatronic dinosaurs. in a pathway through the woods at the back of my property, and families just come in and enjoy their stroll through the woods and hear the roars and see the movements and the realism of these dinosaurs with the eyes blinking, the stomachs breathing, and so on.
I must have to grab my younger nephews and come up and have a look. So walk us through the park. Just give us an audio description of what I'm going to see.
Well, like I said, there's actually 14 dinosaurs and one dragon. The dragon is part of our Halloween attraction, but I leave it out as part of the dinosaur walk as well. These are all animatronic. They weigh anywhere from, the smallest one. I only have one really small one. That's a little raptor. He's about 6 or 7 feet long, but some of them are like 20-odd feet long. They're the biggest weight one, I think, is about 1,400 pounds. The average around 700 to 1,000 pounds, and they're made with rubber silicone. The movement is realistic. They growl, they look at you, the mouth moves. So I have 2 pterodactyls, a brontosaurus, T-Rex, triceratops, Indoraptor, which is a dinosaur that was created in the Jurassic Park movie by taking the genes from 2 other dinosaurs and making a new one. And, it's a bit of fun. And families love it. They're walking through the wooded area, and people say they can't believe they're in St. John's when they're walking through our pathways because it's just so beautiful back there.
How long does it take to make your way through the entirety of the path?
We've had people go through as quick as 10 minutes, and some people be there as long as 45. So what I find happens when you get a couple of young kids, especially young boys, their goal is as soon as they see one dinosaur, to race each other to try to find the next one. So they run to the next one, and as soon as they see it, they're not waiting for the parents to catch up. They go on to the next one again. But, I mean, each dinosaur has a little plaque there to describe the dinosaur, where they come from and what they eat and so on. Some families take their time at each one and take pictures and videos and stroll through and go to the next one. But we let families go through a second time. But if you go through nonstop, you're done in 10, 12 minutes. If you stop and at each one take pictures and read the information, you're 15, 20 minutes. And we do let families go through a second time because sometimes kids are too nervous the first time through and they kind of warm up towards the end. So going through the second time, they enjoy it better. Or they go through too fast the first time because they're excited and they want to see them. And then the second time through, they'll just kind of lounge a bit more and spend more time walking through.
Can you touch them?
Yes, some of them, yes. Some of them are behind the barricade. You don't want to be touching T-Rex. No, he might bite back.
Has it proven to be popular? It sounds fantastic.
It has been. When I was ready to open last year, I did a Facebook like a prelude coming up to what's coming. I put a video out one day, just me walking through the path, and I said, "Hey guys, I got some news to share." I said, "I got a call from another country. They have dinosaurs that are in a really hot climate, and they're afraid the dinosaurs are going to die. They want us to take the dinosaurs here." And I said, "We're going to get some dinosaurs." And that video had 23,000 views in one day. So I said, okay, people are going to like this. So I kept doing updates with the videos last year leading up to the arrival, and it was jam-packed, the first couple of weekends. And I actually got nervous because there's so many people coming through. Now that has died down. So, we have parking on our lot for 45 vehicles, and I have access to other parking just down the street from me for overflow. But the families are coming and enjoying it, and it's I don't know what else to say.
Well, I think it's great. So it's open 7 days a week, 5 days a week. What hours?
Well, right now we're doing 7 days a week. We're doing just 1 to 4 p.m. In the afternoons right now. The month of June, we were doing evenings as well, but we found that not many people were coming, maybe because not many people didn't know about it. But right now we're just doing 1 to 4 p.m. 7 days a week. We may be adding some morning slots down the road a little bit because some afternoons are just too hot. Some people go into the splash pads and stuff like that to cool down. So we may be adding some different time slots a little later. But for now, the immediate next couple of weeks is 1 to 4 p.m. each day.
I hate to ask you prying into your own private business, but what's the cost recovery model look like for a number of years? Because I imagine they sound like they're probably relatively expensive.
They are expensive. The coating on them is a rubber silicone. The manufacturer tells me that they'll last a fair amount of time in the weather, but no doubt they're not used to our climate with the, frost and ice and, the everything else that we get. So we will be protecting them by covering them over. Some of them will be put away inside throughout the winter, but some may stay outside, and we just tarp them over and kind of like build a lean-to around them or something to keep the weight of snow off them.
Well, I'm going to absolutely grab a couple of my younger nephews and come up. They've probably already been there, but I'm sure they'd be more than happy to go back through the dinosaur park again. Ross,
it's funny that you say. It's funny you say grab younger people to come in. We have adults only that come through, which people just say they love dinosaurs and they come through. And I joke with people who come in. Sometimes we get like mom and dad, nan and pop coming with a 3-month-old in a stroller, and I joke with them and say, "Hey guys, you didn't have to use the infant as an excuse to come see the dinosaurs yourselves." So, because it is for all ages. I mean, people all ages love dinosaurs, and I hesitated getting them at first. Like I thought about this a few years ago, but any dinosaurs I've seen in other places, I just felt they didn't look that realistic. But I managed to find a supplier who's willing to work with me on movements and materials and stuff, and I was quite pleased with the outcome of the dinosaurs that we have. So therefore, I decided, okay, these look really real, and I'm comfortable with them looking real. So hopefully, other people will. And the response has been overwhelming.
Well, this 55-year-old man who likes dinosaurs in and of itself, but I just thought I'd take my nephews just for a little treat, go see the dinosaurs, go get an ice cream or whatever the case may be. Ross, appreciate the time. Have a great summer. Good luck with it.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Yeah, I'm interested in that now. Imagine, I had no idea it was even a thing until this morning, and now, of course, lots of reaction to the dinosaur call from Juan. Let's go to line number 4. Good morning, Dion Slaney. You're on the air.
Well, good morning, Patty. How are you today?
I couldn't be better. How about you?
I'm doing great. Enjoying the weather, finally.
Like you would. What's on your mind, sir?
Just wanted to call in today, Patty, for let your listeners know that about an event that the CNIB is having this coming Saturday from 1 o'clock to 4 in the afternoon with a rain date, actually, of Sunday. But as of now, it looks like Saturday will be the favorite day. This is our third annual, actually, Patty, garden party that we have here at 70 the Boulevard down by Kitty Lake, just at the rear end of our property here. We have all kinds of booths from community partners like LifeWise and COD NL, Empower. We'll have all kinds of games and stuff like temporary tattoos. Let's Talk Science will be here doing some science experiments for children. Live entertainment, bouncy castle, of course. Who can have a garden party without a bouncy castle? And live entertainment, free hamburgers, hot dogs, and everything is absolutely totally free. So if anybody's out there that'd like to come around, you do not have to be a client of the CNIB. This is a community endeavor, and if there's anybody around the city that's in the area on Saturday, please, by all means, come by and check it out. It's usually browsable.
What kind of science experiments?
Well, they'll do like little experiments, like with the Mentos.
Oh yeah,
and
okay.
the soft drinks, and they actually lease space here in our property, so they're usually always very eager to participate. And exactly what they'll be doing, they have all kinds of stuff to display. Usually a big hit for the kids, and we'll be having also a guide dog scavenger hunt. Yes, just all kinds of things to do for all ages.
Sounds like a bit of fun. Between 1 and 4, the weather looks pretty good for Saturday, so hopefully it cooperates and you get it done. And of course, 1 to 4, same time. So maybe, just maybe, start off at the dinosaur park and then down to the garden party. What an afternoon.
Absolutely. You're more than welcome. Anybody, even the dinosaurs.
I appreciate the time, Dion. Good luck with it.
Okay, thanks, Patty, for your time.
My pleasure. Take care. All right, bye-bye. All right, let's take a break for the news. When we come back, we'll talk about the fishery, equalization, whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Well, welcome back to the show. Let's see, line number 7. Say good morning to the independent member for Mount Pearl Southlands. That's Paul Lane. Paul, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Morning to you.
Paddy, I wanted to speak about the fishery again this morning. Before I do, I got two very quick things. First one, I just want to put it out there that the Mount Pearl Corps of Salvation Army, they're having a food drive up at Pearlgate Dominion today. It's Load the Dory, so they have an actual dory outside of the door there at Dominion. And as you're going through the grocery store, they have, I guess, tags or whatever on the shelves next to particular products that they might be looking for. If people are going through, they want to pick up a couple of items, they can bring it out to the dory on their way out, and that would be much appreciated. And so I just wanted to give them a little plug for that and the great work they do in our community.
Fair enough.
Yep. Second quick one is I just wanted to very quickly touch on my colleague, Leila Evans. I don't want to talk about, her leaving the NDP per se and get into any of that. But I just want to say that I was really struck by the way it was handled. She came out and she made her decision, but she was very kind and complimentary toward the NDP, towards the leader, Jim Dinn. And I thought in response to it, Jim said, he was surprised and disappointed, but he also was complimentary towards Leila and wished her all the best. And I even heard some commentary from Jordan Brown, same thing. He said, that him and Leila will still be colleagues and friends, and that they're committed to work together for the benefit of Labrador. So I've seen situations and been involved in a couple, I guess, where people leaving parties and so on. Sometimes it can get you can hear a lot of rhetoric and get kind of nasty. But I thought that all those involved did it in the way that it should be done, and it was very cordial. And they're still, going to remain colleagues, of course, and work together, and that's the way it should be. And so hats off to Jim and to Leila and to Jordan in the way that this situation was dealt with.
It was very collegial, no doubt about it, because you're right.
Yep.
In many circumstances similar in the past, it's very acrimonious, the exact opposite of how this was handled. So good on all involved, I suppose.
Absolutely. I thought it was class. It was the way it should be done, and I think it's something that all of us politicians can learn from, and staffers and hardcore supporters, I might add. Anyway, Paddy, I just wanted to touch on the fishery again because it is so important to us all, and the decision on the cod stocks, which I still don't understand. I think most people don't understand and certainly don't agree with what is being done there. I did hear you speaking to somebody about it, I don't know, it was yesterday or the day before, and at one point you sort of said, well, people are saying, the government is not doing enough, and I think you sort of opined as well. I'm not sure what it is they would want the government to do or what more the government can do. I just want to throw out a few suggestions or ideas, at least from my perspective. And I did write the Premier and the Minister of Fisheries, and I did throw this out to them in a correspondence. But, this has been going on so long, these issues with Ottawa and DFO, to, I would say, the detriment of Newfoundland and Labrador on any number of issues. I know for a long time, we've been calling for some sort of joint management or at the very least more consultation, if nothing else, with the province on some of these matters. And when we have these dust-ups, traditionally the Premier of the day might come out potentially and, say we disagree with this. We saw Premier Fury come out with a letter wanting to meet with the Prime Minister. And I will give credit that I did see in the news, I'm not sure it was yesterday or today, where he's got the other premiers on side about joint management and so on. So, anything we can do, I think, is a positive. But generally speaking, we see these announcements made, we see these issues in the fishery, everybody gets upset, we'll see a statement made, it might get raised in the House Assembly, and then it goes away, and we just sit back and accept it. And I think that if we are truly want joint management, if we truly want to fight these issues like this horrible decision on cod, then I think it's important that we need to have a larger campaign And I think that campaign needs to include all parties of the House Assembly, all the leaders. It needs to include the union. It needs to include our fish harvesters and so on. And I think there are a number of things we can do. So some of the things that I had suggested, for what it's worth, is instead of the Premier just, trying to get a meeting with the Prime Minister, I think we should send a contingent up to Ottawa, and that should include not just the Premier, but of course our Fisheries Minister, but also the Leader of the Official Opposition, the Leader of the Third Party, and some representatives from the industry to go up jointly in a united front. I think that we should start a social media campaign, should be led by the government. I think we could be doing a letter-writing campaign involving all the public. I think that we could, we should be demanding that our federal MPs get on board and involve them and get them to get petitions before Parliament and to get private members' bills before Parliament in consultation with our provincial government. I think we need to get our senators involved. And I think we need to look at having rallies and protests outside the Confederation building, DFO, and throughout the province. And the Premier needs to lead it. And I think if he were to do that and take that lead, I think a lot of people would follow him and support him. I know I would. But these one-offs, I'm going to write a letter, this is terrible, and then it all goes away. That's what always happens, and we never get any further ahead.
To be clear, I did not say anything of the sort that we should throw our hands in the air, shrug our shoulders, say, oh, well, that's too bad. What it was in the form of a question. When a caller said the government should do more, I just simply asked him what he thinks the government should do. That's it. I didn't say we shouldn't do nothing.
No, Paddy, and I'm sorry, I wasn't implying that you said we should do nothing. What I said was, I heard you after the fact basically saying, well, people are saying that we need to do more. And I'm just asking out loud here, well, what is it that people think we should be doing? So I wasn't suggesting that you were saying that we do nothing. I'm just saying that I heard you say, well, what is it we should be doing? So I guess I'm just saying to you that these are some of the things that I think we should or could be doing. And these are things that I had sent along, like I say, to the Premier, to the Minister of Fisheries, for suggestions of things we could be doing to fight this terrible decision. And in a larger context, look at things such as some sort of joint management arrangement. But it has to be done very publicly. It has to be done loudly, and it has to be sustained. Doing it for one day or 1 week is not going to cut it. It has to be an ongoing campaign until we make some headway, or at least go down fighting.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, and we've seen examples in the past, whether it be with former Premier Williams haul down the flag and stuff. If we're just going to get involved in histrionics, then we're getting nothing or nowhere. If there's some sort of contingent, I mean, we can't count on the 6 members of Parliament representing the Liberals because, of course, they've all applauded the decision. Now, maybe Ken MacDonald has said something about it that's not in the air of praising this out-of-nowhere decision and the technicalities associated with stewardship versus commercial. But if a contingent could bring any actual pressure here to put the genie back in the bottle before they actually open up the cod fishery this year, which will not happen, but in years to come, maybe there's a way for it to be reconsidered and a new technical tag being stewardship, which I think people haven't really firmly understood exactly the implication of tagging it or deeming it a commercial fishery. It comes with all kinds of things. Even if we had the stewardship fishery and there was a small quota afforded to locally owned and operated offshore vessels versus what is an extremely complicated issue regarding our NAFO obligations, which are just written in stone. I mean, is there a possibility to renegotiate some of those things? Highly unlikely. But with the federal government's full and firm control of how we label this fishery, that's the be-all and end-all here. Of course, the draggers and the type of gear used is a problem versus the short soak of a gill net. So there's a lot to be considered here. The promise of 115,000 tons first to be allocated to the inshore. Everything to do with the technicality of tagging it as commercial creates huge problems. And the offshore won't be simply catching their quota. They're likely going to catch the 10% afforded to the indigenous communities and none took of it. So, there's a lot to this decision.
There absolutely is a huge amount to this decision, and I think I've heard you say it before, and I agree with you 100%. Is that we need to understand what the numbers are, if there is a number, and if there isn't, we need to set one. Like what differentiates a stewardship fishery from a commercial fishery in terms of what is that magic number that justifies this change. So, if it's, and I have no idea what the number is, but we need to know that number so that, potentially, I believe, because the increase that has been put forward is not a huge increase by any stretch. So, one could argue that they could have simply continued with a stewardship fishery and still allowed for a slight increase like we have for the inshore harvesters. But if there was some solid number that says, if it's X million, if it's X number of tons means a commercial fishery, then we simply say, okay, well, we're going to increase it, but we're going to increase it just under that threshold so that we can keep it as a stewardship fishery. But we can't do that if we don't know what the numbers are. And I don't know if anyone knows what the numbers are.
There is no number. There's no such thing. It's an arbitrary decision.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, these are the things that we need to figure out. These are the things that we need to be fighting with Ottawa about to try to get changed, and so it makes sense for everybody involved, particularly this province. But, again, the point I want to emphasize is that while it's all fine and dandy for the Premier, and I'm not picking on the Premier, at least he's doing something, I suppose, while it's fine and dandy for him to write a letter to the Prime Minister and say, I want a meeting, and I am glad, like I say, that he's met with the Premiers and other Premiers, and they seem to be on board for what that may or may not be worth. We need a longer, sustained campaign, and it should be a united front representing all Newfoundlanders, Labradorians, including the leaders of the other two parties and people from industry and the general public. And let's put the pressure on Ottawa. Let's put the pressure on our federal MPs. If they don't want to work for us, we'll show them the door, and then we'll put the pressure on the new MPs, and we will expect them to work for us. But they all have a role to play, and we've been letting them off the hook, and we've got to stop doing it.
Appreciate the time, Paul. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Paddy. All the very best to you.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, here we go. We're going to the Channel Port of Basque. Say good morning to the Mayor. That's Brian Keating, and he wants to talk about equalisation. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the Mayor, Channel Port of Basque. That's Brian Keating. Mayor Keating, you're on the air.
Oh, well, first I'd like to correct it's of Mary's time. Brian Button is the mayor of Port of Basque, a great mayor. I wish I was half the mayor he is, but there it is. But thank you for taking my call, Mr. Daly.
Right. I apologize for that. I know better.
Oh, that's all right. I've been called a lot worse. Thank you. What I wanted to call about today, I've been watching this equalization program and the payment schedule that Premier Fury's been in Nova Scotia talking about several times in the last couple of days. I just want to let people know how important this equalization payment program is and what it's actually doing for Newfoundland and Labrador right now, what it's not doing. Since 2009, we've been deprived over $6 million if the equalization program was done and structured properly. And like you said many times on the show today, I'm not 100% sure how the whole program works. But if you listen to what I'm hearing from our other premiers in Nova Scotia, BC, especially backing us on this program, is that, we are not being treated fair. And, people say it's Liberal, PC, NDP. It don't matter your colors. It's Newfoundlanders. And we deserve this equalization payment, and it needs to be fair for all Newfoundlanders and all other provinces in Canada. Right now, can you imagine in rural Newfoundland, and I'm speaking from the town of Marystown and the Bjorn Peninsula, rural Newfoundland, with the economic strains that are out there now, like, the fishery, and I heard stories on the fishery day is gone. The wind energy is still all up in the air. A lot of questions and answers has to be done on this. And, of course, the mining industry, isn't great. But in our area especially, the economic stability of the Bjorn Peninsula is very weak right now, and it's very scary for a town our size and all the residents, from Goobies right to Point May. It's unbelievable that, the conditions, even simple things like the road signs. And I'm going to be doing an interview on the road signs and the roads on the side roads. If you were to come to the Bjorn Peninsula and drive out most of the side roads on the Bjorn Peninsula, you'd say, I'm never going back there. I can't afford it. We got people on one of the main drags, provincial roads on the Marystown district, Lone Marine Drive. I get about 25 calls a week of damaged under vehicles and stuff. So the importance of this equalization payment that Premier Fury is fighting so hard to get, and my hat is off to him. I think everybody should be fighting for it. But you imagine if we had, since 2009, would have had $6 billion to infrastructure alone, from the largest cities to the smallest town, that you had capabilities of having this funding. It is very, very unfair for the federal government, and we all know we can criticize if it's liberals, conservatives, or NDPs. I like what Paul Lane said. We should work together. It seems like when people get elected, they always want to say how bad the next guy is. I always thought when I ran for mayor that we all work together and say, let's pull the rope together to make Newfoundland and Labrador a stronger place. So that would be my first speech. But if we don't get this equalization structure figured out, we're going to still be on the short end of the stick. I know 2024 and 25 we're supposed to be getting some, and I agree what you said, Mr. Daly, earlier. We can't go back. It's not going to go retroactive back to 2009. We know that. We're not that silly, and I don't suppose we are. I know I don't think so. And the federal government and the courts are not going to go do that, in my opinion, of course. But imagine if we all fought together and stood behind our premier right now. You can be NDP, Conservative, or Independent. I think if we all stand behind our premier and the Liberal government that's in charge as of today, we don't know in 6 months' time or a year when the next election who's in charge. But if everybody pulled the rope in the same direction, I think Newfoundland and Labrador would be a stronger, more prosperous place to live. And I guess that's why I come on the phone today. I said, this equalization, this will help us with our roads and our infrastructure and the economy of the Newfoundland and Labrador, but it'll also help us with this fishery issue, which is a nightmare. As you all know, on the Bjorn Plains at one time, we had 4 major fish plants running at one time. Right now, we got seasonal, 1 or 2 seasonal fish plants. So we need everybody to work together to get to the end goal. And right now, Premier Fury is our leader. Let's follow him until the public speaks who he wants to be the next leader. It'll be Dr. Andrew Fury again, or it'll be Tony Wakeham, or Jim Dinn. Let's make sure that we all work together to make sure Newfoundland and Labrador is a stronger place, and working together will survive. If we start dividing, we're going to fail.
Mayor Keating, I get where you're coming from, but I can only offer my own perspective here. But there's just no chance that we're going to see people of different political leanings get behind, whether it be the Premier Fury on this one, because people wanted him to push back on the carbon tax. He did. People didn't like to say it's just optics. Push back on the cod issue, it's just optics. So that's where we are. We are pretty polarized. It's always going to be the case. I mean, people are going to be a fan of one party or another, and that's the way it goes. But it absolutely does not matter. If you don't like the federal Liberals, they can do nothing right. If you don't like the provincial Liberals, they can do absolutely nothing right. Even if they're fighting the fight that you want them to fight, they can't do anything right. So that's where we find ourselves. So on this one, wouldn't it be in our collective best interest, and I don't care what party we're talking about, if all of a sudden, whether Tony Wakeham keeps this court challenge going, if and when he becomes the Premier, if we come out the other side with some sort of quasi-victory and more money coming in the form of federal transfer dollars, whether it be equalization or otherwise, we're all up. We all get the win. But people just have kind of lost sight of the end result as being the hopeful outcome, as opposed to which political party is leading the charge. Because I couldn't care less. If Andrew Fury gets us over the finish line with 2041, or Tony Wakeham does, or Jim Dinn does, or Fred Hutton does, or if whoever, Paul Dinn does. Look, I don't care. If we can get some sort of victory here, and make no mistake, the politicians need a victory on these fronts, and if one party or another can achieve them, I'll take it.
And Patty, I agree totally, and I don't want to be the bearer of dim and gloom, but if we do not get some wins soon, how long can Newfoundland and Labrador survive with all these losses? And all the hype comes out, and like I heard Paul say, you're hyping out, you wrote 1 letter, you wrote 2 letters. Well, don't you agree that every politician, and me and Paul are great friends, and I tell people this, I got a lot of friends on both sides on 3 sides of the parties. If we work together, we will work. It's not going to happen. We know, even in municipal government, people don't like me, people don't like this councillor. We understand that. But I tell you what I think everybody forgets, when, including all MHAs and councillors and mayors, we work for the people. And all the people are never going to be on the same page. It's impossible. There's never been a 100% majority on anything since the beginning of history.
Fair ball.
So what I tell people, remember who you work for and the end goal. We need a win, like you said, Mr. Daly. We need a win on the Bjorn Peninsula. We need one on the Northern Peninsula. We need one in St. John's and Avalon. We need a win of some sort. And if just because this mightn't be playing the game the way you want to play it, if we win the game, everybody benefits. The whole province of Newfoundland and Labrador wins. So be led by our Premier right now, Andrew Fury, which I don't know the future. I don't have a crystal ball that tells me stuff. But like you said, if Tony Wakeham or if Jim Dinn is leading us the next election, we all got to make sure that we support the party that's doing the fight now instead of tearing them down. And I know Tony personally as well, great guy. I know that he wants to win. I know Jim Dinn wants to win. And I'm sure the Mayor of Mayorstown and all the residents on Newfoundland and Labrador, we need to win because our history's been known to be losing a lot of these battles. But in order to win a battle, I think uniting all the crowd together will help us win a whole lot better.
I appreciate the time, Mayor Keating. Thanks for the call.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Look, again, and I'm not going to be Pollyanna here. We're not going to pass around the peace pipe, right? It's not going to be kumbaya. But, like, if it's 2041 the issue, or if it's COD, or if it's whatever, if it's going to be something that's good for all of us, I can take it, right? I'm still going to strike an X against whatever candidate I choose to vote for, provincially and federally. But a couple of victories, even if it are just our quiet moments, let's just say there's some good news coming. I don't know if there's going to be any good news coming or not. But if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. And yes, people are, they've got lines drawn, and not in the sand, but right in the cement. And fair enough, if you don't support one party or another, that's completely and entirely up to you, and you're absolute right. But if we can get something done, because God knows we need to get a lot more than one thing done and a lot more than one so-called victory. So that's where I'm hoping we land. Let's take a break for the news. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Mike, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Patty, I'm calling this morning about the Canadian dental plan for seniors. I chair a group called the Older Workers of Newfoundland and Labrador. It used to be called that. It's now called the Aging Workforce of Newfoundland and Labrador. One of the big problems we have for older workers, the access to medical plans are frequently cut by employers and insurance companies as people age. Certainly when they get older, they generally have no or very little dental coverage, if any at all. So the Canada Dental Plan for seniors was brought into effect, I think, in 2023, and eligibilities came into place late last year and this year, 2024.
Mike, can I just add one thing? Because I think that's part of the confusion here, is it's not just a dental care plan for seniors. At some point, it's going to be a dental care plan for everyone who's eligible based on net family income. Yes. And at this moment in time, it actually covers Canadians 18 years of age and younger. It also includes people with a disability tax credit, so not just seniors. I want to put that out there because some people are confused as to whether or not they're actually eligible.
Yes, and of course, I'm sorry, I should have clarified that, but I'm calling on behalf of the Park for Seniors. And but you're right, and it will be a very good plan. And congratulations to the Liberals and to the NDP for bringing it out there. Peter Julian and many others did a fantastic job. We have some problems with it in that we have it's sort of a Ghostbusters call. Who are you going to call for bureaucratic ghosts? How do you deal with it? We have a situation where an employee worker retired in early 2023, and after 45 years of self-service at the business, received a severance payment based on the number of years worked to a maximum number of years, and a payout of insurance or a payout of vacation time owed. Those extraordinary one-time earnings placed the senior in an earnings bracket above $90,000 net for the year, her and her husband. Okay? As a result of those one-time earnings, her earnings now are well below that in 2024, and indeed from May in 2023 to now. But as a result of that, in applying for access to the Canada Dental Plan for seniors, you contact Service Canada. They send a file to Revenue Canada to confirm you filed your income taxes for 2023. That's fine. But New Canada, this automatically, this system sits back and says, hey, earnings for 2023 were higher than the $90,000 cap a person is allowed. Therefore, they don't qualify. Service Canada comes out and says, oops, Canada Revenue Agency says you don't qualify. And so in an effort to challenge that and say, hey, people, this is a glitch. That's a one-time 45-year service severance payment and payment of insurance money one time in her whole career gets paid out in 2023. And you're disqualifying her for that, even though clearly her earnings and that of her spouse meet the requirements for this year. Patty, there's nowhere to challenge that. Service Canada says it's not us. You got to go back to CRA. CRA says, oh, we only reported the earnings. That's what we were asked for, and that's what we sent, and they were right. And we have to say, well, yeah, but they were right, even though they're service one-time termination payments. So, yeah, you're right. You go back to service, and they said, we can't do anything for you. Service Canada says, well, we do anything for you. That's CRA. You go to the plan administrator, Sun Life says, oh, we can't do anything for you. Government got to send us a letter telling us that you're eligible. But who do you call? Where's your appeal? There is no appeal. There's just, unsigned documents from these government departments putting you in a spin cycle. How does that person who needs dental services disqualified based on one-time a severance payment based on 45 years of dedication to the company and a vacation payout? So a one-time payment shows up as earnings, and therefore, whoops, you're up. That just doesn't sound right.
And of course, the one time will only mean ineligible one time. In the future, will be eligible, but fair enough. But how do you take it on a case-by-case basis, even if it's just a one-time thing? Because CRA is, as much as it's composed of individuals, it's actually a government behemoth. So how do you suggest they navigate things like one-time severance payments and or anything else that comes in the form of taxable income? Because that'd be pretty tricky.
Fair question. Good question. And you know what? I don't think they can. They're systemic, right? Some system that Service Canada sends over and says, hey, give us the earnings for 2023. Well, when that comes back and they send out and say, hey, you're not eligible because, then the recipient of the turn-down letter should be able to go to somebody other than a system to Service Canada and say, hey, here's why these are not reflective of the circumstances. Here's the situation on this. And Service Canada should have the ability to overrule based on the information provided, and sworn to, signed off on, by the applicants, and say, yeah, we see where you got that one-time earning. Yeah, absolutely right. You're a valid point. So we're going to send a letter of approval to the plan administrator saying that, yes, your earnings certainly do qualify you. So at some point in time, somebody should have the ability to look at this for systemic failure, and that's what this is, to overrule it. But you can't get that. Any senior, I posted it out on our Twitter account for the aging workforce and said, if anybody else has experienced this or is experiencing this, can you send an email to us? Let us know. We got 7 replies back. Now, most people don't reply. They're afraid of it. They don't want to take on Revenue Canada. They don't want to take on Service Canada for whatever reasons. But they all came back and said, yeah, this happened to me. Yeah, this happened to me. And when you go to somebody and say, well, where can we apply? Sorry, you'll have to wait till next year. Well, that's not good enough when you got cavities that need to be done this year and dental work that needs to be done this year, and you're in pain this year because your system screws up. Don't hold a senior. Hold up the senior as sort of a hostage because of your system breakdown. So I guess the question is, there's really nowhere to go with this. They're like in a circle pointing at each other.
Yeah, the Mexican firing squad.
I reached out to Joanne Thompson. I had a very good conversation with a young man, Patrick, who answered the phone there, who seems to be an intake agent, and he's very congenial, very empathetic, and it's going to, send it on to somebody else further up the team. Well, we'll see what that does, if anything. I also reached out to Peter Julian, who was an author of the bill that came out. I don't think it was their intention to penalize people for this kind of a situation where clearly, I mean, looking at it historically, you'll see that these are one-time payments. They're not going to get them ever again. You know, you work there for 45 years, you get so many weeks pay for the, you know, or to a maximum number of weeks for the 45 years you work there. And now you earn your vacation pay. And here they are. Don't put it in deferred income for whatever reason. Here they are, and you reported the earnings at the end of the year. You paid your taxes on it. But boom, who knew in 2023 when you did that this was going to disqualify you in 2024 for a plan that wasn't in effect in 2023. So it's just so stupid. My issue here, Patty, I know CRA has a system. It's a gigantic behemoth. That's a problem. You can't speak to anybody about anything. Service Canada says, "Oh, too bad, so sad." The Revenue Canada says this. Well, where can we apply? Who do we reach out to? What team? What person can we call? Well, there is nobody.
There kind of isn't. And not to be flippant, because there simply isn't.
That's not good enough.
No, I'm not suggesting it is.
Yeah.
Final thoughts to you, Mike, before I have to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know what? If Mr. O'Regan or Ms. Thompson or Goody Hutchings or any of them want to talk about this, and your team has my number there. Feel free to give it to them. I'm not expecting a deluge of calls, but I would certainly like to work with them to put into place some kind of a mechanism where people get treated like this, seniors get treated like this. They have the ability to file an appeal, a grievance, to fight for them and say, hey, let's have a second look at this. And some mechanism can say, you know what, we've assessed what you said. We've looked at the information provided. You're right. You should not have been disqualified. You certainly do qualify for it for this year, and we're going to approve you.
I appreciate the time, Mike. Thanks for the call.
Thank you for your help.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, final break of the morning, final break of my week. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Dave, you're on the air. Dave on 1, are you there?
Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Oh. Say that again, please.
You're on the air. What would you like to discuss?
The drug prescription plan. I don't know if you knows much about it, but I got a drug card, and they sent me out the drug card, and I used it, and I got my drugs reduced in price, and then they cut me off, and then I had to refile for it, and then now they sent me out another letter yesterday saying I'm cut off again unless I go to the drugstore and get all the information. I don't know if you know anything about that, right?
So what's the concern? That you have to go get the information from the drugstore?
Yeah. I'm in a wheelchair. It's costing me $25 to go down there and $25 to come back. And I got to go get all the information. So they already got it all. I mean, they're paying for my drugs, so...
So what specific information are they looking for?
They want all my receipts for the last year.
So your prescription history in full?
Yes.
Okay.
And the drugstore charges you money to get all that. And what do they really want out of me? I mean, I can't do this all by myself.
Is it possible, Dave, that this can be done over the telephone?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. Maybe you might know, right?
No, I don't, to be honest with you. But that's the call I would make, is I'd call my drugstore and explain what you're trying to achieve here. Maybe, just maybe, they can match up your prescription drug card number with your own personal file and simply send it to you.
Yeah, because they sent me out a letter last week saying I was reinstated on my drug card.
Okay.
Then they sent me out another letter yesterday saying I got 30 days to come up with all the information. Patty, no disrespect, but this costs me $30 to go down to the drugstore and $30 to come back. And I'm in a wheelchair, right?
I understand. So do me a favor. Make that call and see if you can get this done over the telephone. And if that's not a possibility, I'll reach out to someone who I know who works in the department responsible for that to see if there are options for you.
Oh, I would appreciate that.
No problem.
Because, I mean, I got no other choice. But the last thing before I go, I know you're a Montreal fan, but I was always Toronto.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day, sir.
Same to you. Thanks a lot.
Later.
Take care, Dave. Bye-bye. Yeah, maybe that can get done on the phone. Let's go to line number 2. Glenn, you're on the air.
Hello, Paddy. How are you?
Doing okay, Glenn. How about you?
Fine, brother. I'd like to comment on the Northern Cod plan that's out. Certainly don't agree with it, as I stated on the fishermen. And the allowed offshore draggers in here now to fish this stock and an increase in the quota is not going to go over well for this stock of fish. I mean, we've come a long way in 30 years with ups and downs, sort of like this. We've gone through one like this as fishermen, and we went back to a cod moratorium again when there was no fish being harvested. Now we're at a place right now where we haven't been for a long time, where fishermen, or small boat fishermen in their communities, are getting out and catching a bit of fish. Our food fishery is good. People are getting a free meal of fish every year. Our tourism must be benefiting from it to some degree. And the Department of Fishery Oceans wants to threaten this now and drive us back to a place that we don't want to go.
Yeah, no, I mean, all that being said, even the union and others were talking about the need for there be an increase in the total allowable catch. So I don't think people are, well, I can't speak for everyone, but the concern seems to be with the offshore and the draggers and the international fleets as opposed to what is a pretty meager increase in the TAC of 5,000 tonne.
It isn't as meager as you might think it is,
Possibly
Paddy.
not.
If you fish the resource, you would realize.
Probably not.
If you fish this resource in southern Triel or in Conception Bay and south of that, over the past 6 or 7 years, you can see a decline, the size of cod and the quantity of cod. Now, if DFO is going to treat the whole northern cod with the same respect, it has to look at St. Mary's Bay and eastern Avalon, Conception Bay, as part of that resource. And right now, it's in a decline. It made me plenty of fish construct somewhat of a major fishery off the Labrador. But, I mean, that's not going to benefit this stock. It's going to put it into a decline. And that's going to jeopardize everything that we've created over the past 20 years, 15 or 20 years. Because we've went through this with the fishery before, where we've had started out with small quotas and increasing to the point where we had to shut it down again. And we're going to do the same thing right now, especially with a 5,000 ton increase. That's nearly half as much again as the quota was actually been for the past 6 or 7 years with a stock, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, but I'm on the water and I'm catching this cod and I can see what's coming aboard. It's in a decline. And we're going to jeopardize everything, the food fishery, the tourism, and the small boat fisheries in our community that is desperately needed. It's going to go away again. And I think you were talking about earlier there about some good thing to come through Newfoundland. And I say the thing that could come from Newfoundland now, that the Prime Minister of this country step in and put this back in a perspective where we can maintain and grow this stock further. This is the only stock in the Northwest Atlantic of codfish right now of any magnitude. And if we jeopardize that right now, we'll be forever trying to get a cod stock, especially for a fishery. We'll never come back no more.
Well, to your point,
we've gone 30 years trying to do this, and where are we at now? We're still with no fish in the southern Triel to any magnitude, like there is on the Labrador, and the stock in 3PS has declined, all because of the northern cod fishery, which has been proven this 3PS stock migrates with the Triel stock. So, I mean, we're not looking at this fishery recovering with increased quotas, ever recovering right now in Triel, and well, for the other stock in 3PS, that's not going to recover either. I mean, they got to cut down now to 2,000 tons or something of that nature. So you can see where we're going with this. I can see where we're going with this. And I'm a fisherman of age right now where I'm not going to be in this fishery for many more years. And what I'm going to take out of it in that time is not going to make much difference. But for the future generations, this province and what we see in our harbours right now, it should make a difference to our Premier and to the Prime Minister of this country. To do this for the people of this province, to keep this food fishery, keep our small boat fisheries alive. Not worried about big, large vessels that are going to go out and catch hundreds of thousands of pounds. That's not what this should be about right now. It should be a stewardship fishery where every person in this province can benefit from it.
To your point, DFO has even said, even though it went from critical to cautious, there has been no growth in the stock since 2016.
The limit reference point was dropped down 500,000 tons to make it acceptable to let the offshore draggers into this fishery. It was done with a stroke of a pen. 500,000 tons taken off the limited reference points to make this a commercial fishery that's acceptable to the people in DFO and the powers that be in the corporations. That's where we're at.
I understand. I was actually in support of your point. I'm not sure why you're yelling at me, but so be it.
Well, I'm loud. I'm probably a bit loud anyhow when I get into the fisheries more, Paddy, because I've been in it all my life and I see a lot of things. And I've been there since the 70s with the catfish, shortly after the creation of the 200-mile limit, and fish was plenty. And fish was plenty in the 80s. And then it's gone. And we have never got it back to, and we probably never will get it back to the degree that it was fish around this island 50 or 60 or 70 years ago. That's probably never going to happen no more. But to knock this stock down right now, you're knocking down the last cod stock that's off our shores, probably in the Northwest Atlantic. And then what do we have? We go back to a day where you can't even go to catch a fish no more.
Yeah, because, I mean, just look what happened to the Gulf stock. It's gone. Decimated. Never coming back. Glenn, simply because it's 11:59 and 40 seconds, we have to say goodbye, but I appreciate your time and your passion.
I thank you for your time, buddy.
Anytime, Glenn. All the best.
Thank you.
All right, there we go. Glenn did have the final word, and I'm going to be away on holidays for a little while, but we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. Talk in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.